shouting to the microphone. The microphone's there. We're not in front of a live studio audience this week.
Really?
Yeah, we've done that now. Now we've been in front of a live audience. We don't really need to do it. We will do.
I think, thank you to all the people who came.
Yeah. Oh,
thank you to Wakefield for hosting us.
The way Rugby League goes these days, we should have sent out a press release saying there are thousands of people there, more than ever before. Which would not be a lie. It was infinitely our largest ever audience.
Turn that on.
Oh yeah, that's true. The podcast listener missed about 5 seconds of the program. It is 4020 live. No Mark this week. I'm not actually sure where he is, but Scully's on his way. People say this is a shambles, but I don't agree. Omni-shambles. Like everything else. Phil's here. Look, it's Rod Studd.
Hi.
In the finest shirt collection Rugby League has to offer.
Well, that's why I'm wearing the jumper today.
It's up your jumper time.
Yeah. It's Rod Studd's here. It is.
Hi.
Dave says depleted squad. No, Scully will be here in a bit. Don't panic.
Now he's got real work.
I know.
He can't be relied upon to be here on time.
I can't remember what that is, to be honest. Get in touch at Forty20 Live on Twitter. No, it's nice. YouTube, Facebook. Well, we're busy during the show. I've not brought my laptop today, so everything's going on. Everyone wants to talk about many and various things, mainly the made-up crowd in Toronto.
Why is it made up?
Because it's full of free tickets and stuff. Because no one's ever done that before. The chairman of Bradford said to crack the papers again. I think we should just ignore it.
Mm-hmm.
Liverpool are coming, but they're not really.
Right.
I've got a revelation.
Well, we're going there, aren't we?
Oh, well,
Magic weekend.
Some people are. What else has gone on this weekend?
It was a third fixture of Easter.
Leeds won a game, so Leeds are out of crisis now.
Well, Leeds not so much in crisis.
Wakefield lost. Wigan won in the game of the season against Castleford.
Easter's an interesting time. We sort of extend it to 3 games. Only one team was undefeated, which I think tells everything about where they are at the moment and how far ahead of people they are, not least with the quality of the juniors they've got. 2 teams lost all 3 games. Admittedly, London lost one extremely narrowly, and so did Hull KR, but this would be the time of the season where you'd worry, I think, if you lost all 3 of your Easter games. I don't know what Mr. Studd's take is on the current league table after the Easter period.
I think my take is that St Helens are probably the best team.
How do you work that?
Look, I think
you'll be telling me next that Toronto are the best team in the championship.
Look, I mean, St Helens are clearly much the best, aren't they? And Warrington are far behind. I know they got tonked when they played at St Helens, but I don't think over a season that Warrington will be far behind St Helens. And then you could probably put another sort of 6, 7 or 8 teams in a heap. 3 of them will reach the playoffs and think they've had a good season, and some of them won't and think they had a poor season, but there won't be much in it. There'll probably be a bit of luck here and there that decides that, and then I think you'll find London will finish bottom. They could get. There's a possibility. I'd be worried if I was London. They could get tailed off quite quick now because they've had that not a flying start. They had a good start, didn't they? When they won 3 games, obviously, and now they're hitting the wall. And I know they've lost a couple of games narrowly, but they're getting beat every week now. And once that starts to become a habit, it's very difficult to get out of unless they can find somebody that happens to be worse than them. Over the season.
Is this your
Can
phrase,
they find someone worse?
Regression to
the mean. Regression to the mean. And they're basically not as good as the other teams, are they? I mean, I'm not giving away any secrets here. Can they find someone worse than them over another, how many games it is?
If you were David
games.
Hughes, would you be prepared to recruit now? Because I think they made a decision at the start of the season they wouldn't spend.
Yes, I mean, if they want to get better results,
are they now in a position where they look at the likes
money.
of Hull KR,
right? Well,
they look at possibly Leeds, maybe even Wigan, and say, because they've got Leeds to play at Magic Weekend, that could be and they've got Wigan this Thursday.
Relegation 4 points.
Let's have it right. Leeds spend big money on big players with big salaries, and for Leeds to finish bottom with the playing personnel they've got would be nothing. I mean, it'd be extraordinary, but B, it'd be an absolute scandal, wouldn't it? And there'd be questions being asked. I mean, for Leeds to finish bottom with that team, I think would be something of the most extraordinary thing we've seen in rugby league for years, since the Leicester Vikings. And could they finish above OKR? London, that is. Maybe. Could they finish above Huddersfield? They're already 4 behind them. Could they finish above Salford? I'm now listing teams that are not spending big bucks and have lower wage bills. Could they finish above Salford? Well, Salford have already got 12 and a positive points difference. So,
Is it getting
what I'm saying is, if you were David Hughes, how much would you have to spend to make a difference? Is the first question.
Who would you spend it on? Is the first question. You've got very few out there.
Say you could just say for the sake of talking, you could identify 3 players you thought would make a difference.
The rumours are that Ryan Atkins is
right. So you could identify.
So let's say
I don't know what Atkins is on,
offer.
but I'd be very surprised if Ryan Atkins wasn't on a salary that was in excess of £100,000.
But if you got that gap in your salary cap, and you're David Hughes, would you now mandate his men to go out?
So Warrington released the player because they don't want a player, and Atkins says, "Well, if you can match my salary, I'll come and play for you."
Yeah.
Right. So you've got to pay him whatever he's going to get paid for. May, June, July, August, September, 5 months, say half a year's salary.
Yeah.
But even if you could find 3 Ryan Atkins and you said, right, okay, if we spend £250,000, it might make a difference. You're gambling £250,000. You got to.
But if you stay in Super League,
yeah, but it's all percentages.
You're getting £2 million next year for being in Super League.
Okay.
Whereas if you're in the Championship, you might only get
but there's no
£500,000.
There's no certainty, Phil, is there? Even if you spend £250,000, there's no certainty you're going to get the results. So you might do £250,000 and get exactly the same results that if you hadn't done the £250,000 and you get relegated anyway.
But
so
this is sport.
It is sport.
And people gamble.
Gamble. Mr. Hughes has spent a lot of money already, hasn't he? He's spent a lot of money over the years. Over the piece, he's spent.
He's spent 20 million, hasn't he? Over.
So it's hard. You've got to be able to identify the right players that you think will make a difference, and you've got to be prepared to effectively gamble a lot of money. I mean, it might make a difference, but then would Hull KR spend to get out of trouble? I think they're all lucky that it's not 2 up, 2 down.
And that's the interesting thing about Hull KR being linked with Robert Louis for next season, because next season is fine, but you got to know what division that you're going to be playing in.
You know, when players leave clubs when they've got a visa and they have to go through a visa application again.
Yeah.
Should players, when they leave one club and go to another club, have to go through some kind of test to see whether they are a fit and proper person to play?
What? Who are you
referring? Just saying. Ben Barber's not allowed to play, but if a player left the club,
well, that's not been tested yet, has it?
Well,
it's not actually been tested.
Maybe London.
It's not actually been tested.
David, go on, pull the.
Well, it's not been tested. The proof of the pudding would be in the eating if a club wanted to sign the player and said we can sign this player and he wants to play for us, and then it's down to the relevant authorities to decide whether they want that player to be available to play in the Super League. And I think it was last time I was on actually we were discussing that. There's a lot of players played Super League with all manner of criminal convictions, isn't there?
Absolutely.
And they're still been allowed to play in the competition. So I don't know. It's a very, very complex issue that.
Well, the hypocrisy of the Rugby Football League on that will be very interesting as well. But,
so you're advocating that London should sign Ben Barber? They
should sign Ben Barber. There you go. And Izzy Folau, everyone just sign. just sign everyone. Just spend all your money. Apologies to the people on YouTube for the audio issues, but now I've unplugged all the equipment. It's working fine. So
you just can't hear us.
You know what's happened is because. Not to let light into the magic, but there used to be more stuff in the studio.
They did.
And now there's less stuff in the studio.
It's uncluttered.
When I say studio, office.
It's uncluttered.
And now it's, you can hear the echoes a lot more.
Mm-hmm. Oh, right.
But I'm just blaming that for everything. People are moaning about the Magic Weekend. They're upset about that. They're moaning that apparently no one's bought tickets. But how do we know this? We don't know. It's people on the internet. If you're upset about people not buying tickets for the Magic Weekend, buy some tickets for the Magic
Weekend. Are the people who are upset about it those that haven't bought tickets?
I don't know. We've not got any to give away either, as opposed to every other
I'm
media.
sure we will.
Or the Summer Bash. I mean, we can sell you a T-shirt, but I don't know how much money we'd make on that, to be honest.
Well, did I read Mr. Elson saying that they were looking to get 63,000 to Liverpool over 2 days? Was that right? I think I read that.
I think he liked it. Otherwise, it defeats the object of moving it from Newcastle, where they did get those sorts of figures.
I don't know what the game plan is, to be honest. The pitch is too small for a start, but that's just been brushed under.
I just think it's more to do with the fact, apart from the fact that we need to go back and decide exactly what we want now on Magic Weekend. Right. Doesn't it have to be a weekend, as in a destination whereby you will make a weekend of it?
Liverpool's quite a nice place to go.
It is, but if you're from St Helens or Wigan or Warrington,
it's not much of a trip.
Are you going to stay overnight?
Well, No, you probably wouldn't, would you? Because it's economic to just
Absolutely.
nip back home and then nip back to Liverpool the next day.
Mm.
But if you were going from Hull, you'd probably spend that.
You could, but
Or Leeds. Well, even Leeds.
Mhm.
Not that
Oh,
much on the
yeah.
train. I don't know. Look, listen, the Magic Weekend has been...
well, you're very much one for home and away fixtures.
Yeah,
but this is the one that skews the.
excuse the
The
league
whole
table.
season,
Yeah, that's
isn't it?
right, yeah. I mean, it's been a mystery since the get-go what they were going to do with it, and it came with all the fanfare of expanding the game to either Scotland or Wales, didn't it? And
And it sort of worked in Cardiff.
it was right in Cardiff, apart from the time when they held it in February. If you remember,
That
when
wasn't
it was so
right.
cold that you could,
But the fact that you
Shivvy
could
the
make a
timbers.
weekend out of it and the stadium was right
But
in the
Newcastle
middle of
was
the
all right, wasn't it?
Newcastle ticks every box, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Sean Wayne doesn't want to be on this
no,
programme.
he wouldn't be. So
He did once.
I just don't know what they're.
I don't know what the purpose of it
It's
is.
like anything else. As Mrs. Studd always says to me when I'm doing something, I'm going to email something. She always says, "Look, start off by working what on earth you're trying to achieve, and then we'll work out how you can achieve
Your
it."
Majesty says that quite a lot.
So almost on a daily basis. But unless Mr. Elston and co actually know what they're trying to achieve on the Magic Weekend, it's very difficult to achieve
Well,
it,
of
isn't
course.
it? So I don't know what he's
Are you
trying to
going?
achieve.
Are you going?
What he's trying to
Why aren't
achieve.
you going? What's do you like
More
it? What's
important
going
than
on?
those who are going, why are those who are not going deciding
Well,
to withdraw their support?
Tim says event fatigue? Question mark. We don't have enough events.
No,
how many
we need
events?
more events.
What
Well,
more?
there's an event. If you call Catalan away an event,
Mm.
London away could be an event if you chose to sort of like go into London and enjoy the sights, or go to the West End or something. And the Challenge Cup final is an event.
Yep.
The Grand Final could be termed an event.
I think
Challenge Cup semi-finals are now an event.
Challenge Cup semi-finals are an event. How many events do you want? Any internationals event? Is there any internationals on?
That's where the
Not here.
slightly
Oh, no, it's like the World Cup qualifier in that. Was it? Greece and Norway.
Greece and Norway,
Yeah.
yes.
I don't know I don't know if the Magic. It
just-
might have had its day.
Yes, I think that's the other thing.
It might have had its day because, look, I mean, do you want to go? Do
If
you
you-
want to go and schlep to Anfield to watch a league game between
Leeds and London.
Leeds and London?
But if you
We're
want a
going
new
to.
I've seen it
audience,
once.
if you want a new audience for the sport, then do you not have to take it to areas where you are attracting people who
But
wouldn't normally go to rugby league?
Well, then you got to work out. So you go to Newcastle.
So we-
Did that attract any new people to watch the sport?
Well,
and if so, how many?
according to the figures that were given out by the
Right.
RFL, because they were in charge of the game at the time,
Yeah.
a long time ago when they were, that around about, I think it was 15% of the people came
Right.
from the northeast,
Right, and then
which
what
again
did they do?
begs the question.
Yeah, but once they've been once, what did they do then?
Well, Cramlington go every year with their orange
With the orange
t-shirts.
t-shirts. What's happening in the North East though this year at St James's Park?
Well, Rugby Union is cashing in on the audience
No, but
that
they've
we've
been there.
created.
No, well,
for
hang
it.
on a minute. Let's have it right. They've
No,
been
they've
there.
got two.
They've been there before.
Yeah.
They played World Cup games there, didn't they?
And they've
South
got a
Africa played
Premiership
there, didn't
team
they?
there.
Yes, I know they did. And they played a fixture there in the Premiership, and also the last Rugby Union World Cup they played at Newcastle, didn't they? South Africa played. I can't remember.
Well,
who they
talking
played.
of the World Cup, we took a game to Bristol on a wet Wednesday, the lowest ranked game of the entire World Cup,
Yeah,
of which there were 8,000 people,
yeah.
virtually 90% of whom must have been from Bristol, because there weren't hordes of traffic travelling down the M4
No.
on a wet Wednesday night.
No.
But we never took anything back. So I think we're guilty of not cashing in on some of the areas that we have tried to expand into.
Well, here's marching on together. St James's Park is the perfect location. A short walk from the ground are an array of bars, that's the key word, restaurants, takeaways, chicken cottage, cafes, perfect for a boozy weekend. Anfield is not. It's surrounded by boarded houses. It is a huge downgrade, says marching on together. That might be part of the reason.
But we are going to have Liverpool in Super League by
We are,
2023.
which is interesting because
Not in League One, but in
No,
Super League.
I mean,
They
I-
haven't even been admitted yet, but they're going to be in
I mean,
Super League by 2023.
I'm not a journalist, but I am told that journalists usually wait for two sources before they say something. However, I've heard from one source that the Rugby Football League are not accepting any other clubs from the UK into their pyramid. Now that could be completely wrong, but that's what I've heard from a source.
Hmm?
So, I don't know. Where's the Cumbrian Lakers? The people who make the most money
Where
out of
indeed will Hemel Stags be next year?
Ottawa. The biggest
Well, will
fans of Dr. Kukash are people who've got to fill pages on the internet, which is infinite. to get clicks about what Dr. Kukash is doing next. But there you go.
Well, he's got a hotel in Liverpool, so I presume
Yeah.
we're all going
Well,
there for a drink after the Magic Week.
Possibly.
They'll be on the house.
Are the sponsors
no?
inviting us this year?
I doubt it.
There was a big media brief. Well, there was a media briefing with Robert Elston last week. Guess who wasn't there?
Well, I certainly wasn't.
Rob wasn't there.
Can I help you?
But,
I never get invited to these things.
but
Well, no,
he-
in fairness, now Andy Wilson did invite me to the RFL thing the other week, but I was busy because I was had to work and earn some money to do this.
One of the things Mr. Elston is proposing is a rebrand of Super League. So, assuming you were the consultant,
Sam Tompkins and
well, he's had a caution today, so he's
God
off.
damn, no good.
You're
Right.
employed by Mr. Elston as your consultant of choice.
Well, what does he mean by that? Because
I want to rebrand Super League, he says.
Was
So
does
you've
that
got
mean,
the
does
blank
that mean,
sheet of
does that
paper.
mean he's going to abandon the word Super and League, or does it mean he's going to have a new logo with Super League?
Well, apparently it's going to be carried out by the same people that rebranded the Premier League.
As the Premier League.
Oh,
With that new
Well,
badge.
hang on a minute.
Has the Premier League been rebranded?
Yes, quite a few
He's got
times
he's got a
actually.
new badge with
Right.
a lion and
It
a
started off as the FA Premier League, then it became the FA Premiership, and then it went back to the FA Premier League.
people still
Right.
go to the Premiership and get annoyed, you see.
So what would be the first thing that you'd do
And it
to
also,
rebrand it?
it also, the sponsor of the competition has sort of changed in different places there. So when it went to the Premiership, it was sponsored by the beer Carling, so it was the FA Carling Premiership, not the Carling FA Premiership. And then it became the Barclays Premier League without any mention of the FA. So there's been all sorts of subtle rebrands. I'm sure it's made a great difference to your enjoyment of the FA
I think
Premier
people
League.
only turn up on the basis of what.
Well, yeah, exactly. And the logo's changed a bit, hasn't it?
Well, that's the thing. If
The logo's changed.
So
a bit.
surely,
So-
if we're going to change Super League, however we're going to change it, then the same teams playing the same number of games, which is too many,
Right.
in the same format, with virtually the same players, although we have had a couple of extra marquee players this
Yeah.
year who have added
Well,
a bit of bang.
I don't know if he's going to change it to
Surely that's what he's
Premier
got to
League.
change.
Is he going to change it to Premier League Rugby?
Ooh, that's getting a bit close to.
the other lot.
Well, that's the Premiership,
Yeah.
isn't
Would
it?
people know the
Or is
difference?
it? Yeah.
They have the Premier 15s as well, which is their women's
Or
competition.
would you,
Premier
would you
first.
perhaps bring in a team like Toronto?
Super
Although
15, Super Rugby.
Mega Race Rugby League.
I think you've got to have 13s in it. Somewhere.
Image is everything, writes Paul Bennett in League Weekly. Or so they say.
Well-
May is fixing to be a massive month in shaping Super League's new, quotes, young, confident and ambitious narrative.
Well, I don't know. What does he think would be better than Super League?
Well, it means...
Well, when you've spent 23 years promoting a brand, you would be foolish
Well,
to throw
you
that
say,
away. wouldn't you?
you say promoting the brand. They don't actually promote the brand very well at all because the difference is.
So is that the answer? Not changing the brand,
Well,
but
if you look,
promoting
if
the
you
brand.
look at the Premier League, all the Premier League teams have got the Premier League badge on, haven't they? And the NFL in America, they've all got the NFL badge on. It's instantly recognisable. So why haven't they got? Why isn't the
Well,
it did start, didn't it? It
we
started
had it-
Super
we
League.
had it on
Yes,
the-
it
on
started.
the- on
The
the
S was
sleeves.
there,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's suddenly it's kind of like been pushed into the background. The S, hasn't it?
It
Well, that
does-
should be your brand, shouldn't it?
It does look like it will still be Super League, but with a new logo and,
Yeah.
quote, shiny new fonts. Can't be a good font.
Right.
Well,
That's
again,
right.
I think that'll put 10,000
Yeah.
on the gate.
Well,
solve
we
it.
are looking to
That's
shed
right.
Rugby League's old Whippets and Flat Caps reputation, which of course is a reputation currently taken forward by two of the players in the one of the players in the competition, the women's at Toronto, in their podcast, isn't it? But there you go. So that's the excitement of the rebrand of Super League. Everyone's excited about
think-
that. We are very cynical people on this program.
Well, there was
No,
some,
I
there was some
just
talking about
think
having less clutch on the shirt, wasn't there? I think someone was talking about.
But you're only playing on the margins there, aren't you?
Well, look, there's so you don't get me started on shirts. I mean, look,
Get your Magic Weekend shirts.
look.
now.
Just for say, for example, I like a lot of what Warrington did with Carl Fitzpatrick at the sea. I think it's brilliant. The Wolfie and the Wire Flower, absolutely fantastic. Right, so they bring out this kit for the Magic Weekend, which they celebrate in great style, and everyone goes, "Oh, this is the fill in the blank here reason for this anniversary of fill in the blank here." And this one happens. The fill in the blank happens to be when they played Wigan in a game in Milwaukee.
Yes.
Right, and everyone goes, "What a brilliant kit! Oh, it's the best kit I've ever seen. Fantastic! I'll tell you what, it's so fantastic. Why are you playing that every week? That's a good idea. Playing that kit every week instead of that thing you've got on at the moment, and then you wouldn't have to have it as a special kit. And then the teams will then get to a cup final, have another kit, and a Magic Weekend kit,
Well,
and a Catalan kit to play in one match in the Camp Nou.
That has Betfred rolled
Right.
out
So
because they can't sponsor it.
Why don't they just play in an iconic kit?
Well, unfortunately, all the promotion around this Milwaukee game is slightly undermined by the fact that the two teams are now playing each other the week before in the Challenge Cup as well.
I don't like how Wakefield's special.
Is there going to be a special kit?
Special cup kit.
Yeah. Wakefield's Magic Weekend special kit is to celebrate losing in the Yorkshire Cup final.
Well, they
didn't realise.
Well, they played in Wigan and Warrington played in the cup final in 20 something. When was it? 1990?
No, 90.
No.
91 was Wigan Saints, wasn't it? And 92 was
92?
Wigan Cass, I believe.
Right. Well, anyway, come on. You're meant to be the
It was,
replacement.
it was in the early 90s. It was pre-Super.
Right. So why don't they just reprise the kit from that?
But why
Have
would you
another
want to
kit.
bring out a kit
with
for a
no
game
one.
that you lost? That's the thing
What's
about
Wakefield?
Wakefield, aren't they?
Yeah,
They're celebrating losing a cup final in
I
1979.
don't
But
think
seriously,
they realised that.
But
Ah,
When
seriously,
they brought out the kit.
Do they also realise that 1979 cup final
Yeah.
was in fact the worst one we'd ever seen?
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't
Oh,
born, so I haven't seen.
but seriously now, if things are so bad that you can't make ends meet without punting out 4, 5, or however many kits in a season, then what on earth's going on?
But isn't
I
that
mean, is it
also
really that
preaching
bad?
to the converted? Because the only people that will buy that are the people that you're always expecting to buy
Yeah.
things.
Well, just
How
have
does that
two.
make it youthful and...
Just have two
Vibrance.
and play in the home kit unless there's a clash.
The other thing
Well, that was a great thing in the Women's Super League last week where Saints played Bradford. It was on Easter Monday, wasn't it? It was on the end. And both teams were wearing white.
we've moved away from distinct colour contrast in kits as well. That your home kit would be dark or light, your away kit would be light or dark. There would never be a clash. And if two teams played
Where
each
was
other...
a real shocker recently? Was it Wakefield v Huddersfield?
Yes, it was where it was both
both
in
of them-
blue and they were in kind of grey,
Blue.
purpley.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
What I mean, who sanctions that? Why weren't they in there?
But the NFL, you have to have a dark
Yeah,
kit
kids.
and a light kit,
That's
which
very
is
much
down to
American
black
sport,
and white
yeah.
photography in the newspapers the day after, so you can immediately differentiate the two competing
Right.
teams.
Good to know that we have had at least one vote for renaming Super League as Mega because it's better than Super League. That's Sam. Thanks to that, Sam. We're going to get our
Sensational league.
get our invoice into wherever Super League headquarters are these days. It's the 1895 Cup this weekend.
Excellent.
Round 1, Hunslet Workington live on the Our League app. I've got in fact, Workington just reminds me. Everyone's getting sacked these days. Your columnist Leon Price gone. Richard Marshall gone. Fellow from Rochdale maybe gone.
What do you make of that, Richard Marshall, particularly at Halifax?
Well,
I think Leon is incredibly unfortunate. He's a victim of short-termism, but I understand why Workington need to get out of League One this year, and they've lost 3 games. So,
We've lost 4 now.
But I mean, they've lost 3 on the trot. Are you surprised that Richard Marshall, who was hailed as one of the...
Moderately surprised, but I don't know the reasons why the board of directors think they should go in a different direction. I don't know what they expect. I don't know what their budgets are. I don't know what what they've demanded of the coach or what performance indicators they've set. I don't know really what's going on. But speaking broadly,
Can he do any better than the best part-time team?
well, yeah. I mean, speaking broadly, you're back to the same equation. If you want to get better results, then generally you need to get better players, and if you can't afford to get better players, you've got to recruit the best you can on the budget you've got, and they probably are doing that, aren't they? You'd imagine from the results they've got a low budget compared with some of the teams in that division. Namely, when they've been asked to compete with Toronto, who are spending, Toronto's wage bill must be, 2.5 million if it's a penny. So Halifax.
Is that allowed under the salary?
Well, they
cap?
couldn't have marquee players, can't they?
John Wilkie,
I
Adam
right.
Sims.
So it's very hard. I mean, but I don't know who they think they can appoint. Now, if just living in a fantasy world, everyone screamed blue murder said it's absolutely outrageous that Richard Marshall's got the sack. If they wheeled in Craig Bellamy next week, you said brilliant, it was great we got rid of Richard Marshall. That's fantastic, great decision. If they wheel me out, they think what the hell are they doing? So, but generally, Halifax are shopping in a certain shop for coaches, aren't they? It's like they're not an elite level team. They're not got a huge budget, like Leeds Rhinos or St Helens or whatever. So they're in that certain
Not
shop.
Wigan.
Or Wigan. They're in that shop at the moment, aren't they? So can they get anybody better than Richard Marshall? Well, they obviously think they can. Whether they can or not, well,
Or is it an economic...
probably not.
Well, that's what Rick says on
It's difficult.
Facebook.
Is the worry that clubs like Halifax are trying to sustain themselves and because they'd already intimated to Richard Marshall that perhaps his contract wasn't going to be renewed at the end of the year, or the players that he perhaps had identified
Maybe they want
that
somebody
need.
cheaper than Mr. Marshall.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is it an economic decision? In which case, we'd be worried that a club like Halifax, or should we be lauding them for cutting their cloth according to their means, which is what
First of all, you need to know why they don't want to employ Richard Marshall as a coach next season. Is it because the budget doesn't allow them to do it? Is it because they think they could get someone better? Is it because they don't think he's very good? Is it because they think the results should be better? I mean, there's a myriad of reasons why a club would want to go in a different coaching direction.
Does it seem odd to you after 12 games of a season? It's
Well,
not like they're
well, they've said that they were going to change it for next season. They did. I'm right in thinking they said they weren't going to employ him next season.
I think that was part of the reason
rather
behind
than
it.
get out now, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it may well be that he turned around and said,
I'm going
if
now.
you don't want me, I can go and get a job as an assistant in a Super League club.
Yeah, possibly. Within English sport, the culture is if somebody says to a coach, "We don't want you next season," that's an anathema in English sport. Whereas in Italian football, it's fairly common. Like the manager of AC Milan might say halfway through a season, "I'm going to manage Napoli next season." But I'm cracking on with the job here, and I'll do the best I can. But over here, we immediately think we smell a rat. Okay, he can't coach a team. How will he coach against Napoli when they play them? It's outrageous. He won't try. But that doesn't work like that, does it? So it's all commonplace in continental sport. But over here, it's like if you say we don't want you next season, the immediate thing is, we should walk out now, isn't it?
I just think if we drew up a list of clubs that would be dispensing with their coach a third of the way through the season, Halifax wouldn't have been towards the top of that list, I don't think.
Could have done a Wigan if he'd have stayed on. Could have won the
Sean Wayne,
Championship.
coach of Halifax.
He's busy with the Scottish
He's
Rugby
probably
Union.
more likely to be the coach of Wigan next season than he is the coach of Halifax.
Which is not going to be Chris Chester, because he denied that last week.
He did.
So I asked the important questions at these press conferences.
Denied what? That he's going to be the coach of Wigan?
Yeah.
What price is he to be the coach of Wigan?
I think he was 4-1, but I couldn't find the price with the sponsors who apparently had priced this up. But,
Right.
It looks as though Wigan's coaching hiatus is going to come to a head within the next couple of weeks, because Adrian Lamb has now come out and said a decision needs to be made. I think we can safely say he has thrown his hat into the ring to stay for another year. If you were Wigan, would you be announcing now that at least there's some continuity?
Well, they've already announced the coach for 2021. So how many goes are they going to have at it? They've got another guess. Come on now. If I were Wigan, I'd keep my head down. I mean, look, if they come out,
they need to appoint somebody.
What, for next season?
Yeah.
Well,
Now?
just let Sean McLaughlin do it by himself.
Or just
Why do they?
extend the contract of Adrian.
Well, at the moment, nobody knows who's going to be coaching any of the Super League teams next season. You're just assuming, aren't you? You're assuming that Justin Holbrook's going to coach St Helens next season. But why are you assuming that?
But Wigan actually
if Melbourne Storm
We
ran
need
up,
more semantics in rugby league.
Wigan have a vacancy though, don't they? Unless
Wigan
they
have a
actually
vacancy.
say
Absolutely correct.
that Adrian Lamb is going to be their coach from here on in. At the end of this season,
Yes.
he's leaving.
That's right.
He has now said, well, actually, it probably is doing us a little bit of harm and the uncertainty.
At the moment,
and I am available.
At the moment, he'd probably be the favourite on the grounds. He's sat in a chair, although the music is still playing.
So
and what
would
you
you
want
not
to
just
know is in the
appoint-
chair when the music stops.
Would you not appoint
No.
him?
Why would you do that?
I don't know, just to
Well,
get
you would
some
if-
degree of stability in the club.
Well, you would if you thought. Well, you see, the problem you've got here, you see, because you could fall into what sporting aficionados now describe as Solskjaer's syndrome. And you can be lulled.
Which is hilarious.
and you can be,
And we all saw it coming, and it's like, oh,
you can be lulled into a situation where you're duped by short-term patterns of results, which may or may not have anything to do with the performances. And you might have a few lucky results.
Which certainly hasn't happened.
Right, no, so you could go the other way then, couldn't
Yes.
you? You could think that Adrian Lamb's no good because of a series of results where they've won 5 out of 13. You think, well, that's absolutely rubbish. But some of them have been narrow and they might have won, and another
they've had a number of injuries.
They could have had 7 wins.
We've got someone coming in
8
who
wins.
knows all about being sacked.
Hello?
Early. Oh, it's here. Here he is.
Ah.
Let's go, everybody.
The right person
Scary,
to
scary.
ask about
So-
sacked coaches.
Sacked coaches, yeah. So the thing with Lamb, it's a bit difficult to. You can't judge a man on 13 matches, can you?
No.
So.
And they obviously didn't have sufficient faith in him, other than to offer him a 1-year deal.
No, but they thought that they were going to employ Edwards, didn't they?
Yeah, but they didn't say, but Lamb can stay on as his assistant, or...
No, but they also
part of the
thought
coaching
that
staff.
everyone thought that was going to happen, and even Lamb did, didn't he? So Lamb didn't. But if I were Wigan, look, they're not. A club of Wigan's standing in World Rugby League is not going to be short of applicants in a coaching position whenever
Well,
they
Richard
advertise it.
Marshall's available.
He's available, yeah. But there could be any number. Look, Wigan could go shopping quite nice rugby league coaches shops, and they could have if they fancied a coach from lower down the Super League, they could tempt probably quite a few of those to take the job, couldn't they, as well? So they won't go short of offers. They've just they've got plenty of time. They don't need to do it. They don't need to do it now. There's no. What's the point?
I'm concerned that people.
Mr. Lamb says they do. He thinks that
Maybe
it's
trying
a
to force their
disruptive.
hand.
Well, and so would you give him the job?
No.
That's the question. Would
I
you
wouldn't
give
be
him the job?
dictated to.
No, I wanted to be honest with you. I think look at the way that we're going to play, and I think at times
Gary Schofield, everybody.
when you, I think at
We're
times
now up to 46 Great Britain.
certainly when we see Wigan play, and when you see Wigan play, I think that the players just look lost, don't they? They're not lost in what they're supposed to be doing.
I was going to ask you about I mean, we all know that the third game at Easter is the one where we can only laud the players for playing under
Well, they've
severe
no
duress.
choice. They've no choice.
But and you have to say the defence in the Wigan Castleford game was absolutely admirable in terrible conditions. But as a spectacle,
Would you use the word filth to describe that match?
It was awful. It was absolutely.
so you can rebrand the Super League as much as you want, but if you're still going to have congested fixtures.
It was awful, and to be honest with you, for entertainment, I would have given it 1 out of 10 because the players turned up, but also as well, Phil. To be honest with you, it's all right saying, well, you know, the defence has got to be admired. Well, at the end of the day, if you don't move the ball, anybody can tackle. Even I could have tackled that sort of thing in my day. To be honest with you,
Now we get on the round.
but you know what I'm coming from. If you don't move the ball, it's so easy. It's so easy to defend. You know, and that was exactly the scenario from there. It was an absolute awful game, and I know, you know, they're talking about the discussion of the Easter weekend of maybe getting shut of it now and what have you, but still, the players have got to go out there and do a little bit of entertainment, and that was absolute dross. It was. Yeah. If anybody thinks any different, well, it must be much a different game to me.
Both teams went out onto they appeared to have the attitude that they went out to try not to lose rather than try to win, didn't they? So by that I mean, what I mean by that is, like, you know, to go out and throw the ball around and try to score tries. Instead it was like, well, let's not drop the ball and kick it up the other end and hope for the best and make sure that we don't. It was like that, wasn't it? And it just became.
You see, also,
neither team was capable of doing anything beyond the basics.
Didn't
that was pretty
any
difficult. That was just
it was awful rubbish. Absolute awful.
Absolute rubbish.
So how people have been more upset
Rubbish.
about Toronto and their pretend crowd and no one being at Wigan.
It was nearly a capacity crowd, I'll have you know. It was
Well,
only 30 something short of the official capacity of the stadium.
People upset because
There wasn't a hint of irony in that tweet that you
What?
put out then.
they've given away free tickets and they've got a beer festival.
Irony.
They were all in the beer garden.
They were in the beer garden, were they? Oh,
In
right.
fairness, did you watch the game?
I did.
Got Swinton on the telly. You're upsetting your columnist Martin Calvin as well. Well, I think he agreed.
Right.
In fairness, but this is people moan about Toronto being on the telly. See what we're going to get. They are going to have games which are not entertaining because they've all got to be on the telly. Hopefully, this week against Bradford will be quite good, but
Right.
we'll see. I don't know. But are Toronto the issue? Not really.
I think we're at a very interesting place with Toronto at the moment because Mr. Elston is wanting to put in extra caveats for expansion teams to get promoted, which obviously wouldn't apply to Toronto because if he brings in a quota, then they would have to be in if they finish top because we haven't reached that quota level yet.
No, they've got to win the league. They've got to
But
win
yeah,
the playoff.
no, I said if they do.
Yeah.
But
Sorry, right.
what we have got is, and there's no reason for us to dispute the fact that there were 9,500 people there for a game that was almost a foregone conclusion before it kicked off.
Well, look,
and you look at some of the crowds in traditional areas, and
Proper rugby teams.
Robert
That's the
Elston's
official
talking
title.
about appealing to a newer, younger audience.
Well, look,
Well, he's got
well,
that in Toronto.
Yes, what do you expect? Well, I mean, but look, they're an expensively assembled team of, at that level, top quality rugby league players on big salaries, playing in a big city with. I mean, what's the population of Toronto? 5 million or something. I don't know. It's an enormous place, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they've got, is it 6 professional sports
Right.
teams?
So you know, so they will attract a big crowd. You'd expect to attract a big crowd. It's well marketed. They've signed a lot of good players. You know, if you go back to the World League of American Football when the London Monarchs were playing, their first season they got 40,000 average gate. You know, so these things will happen because people want to see top class players playing sport. So Toronto have done a great job in marketing the game and getting all those players in. It's just a question of where does it go now? Because
is it too late to be having these discussions about where
well,
does it go?
I don't know, because are you going to carry on just dropping in teams? Effectively, they've got the same players as Warrington could have, haven't they? They've got a bunch of English rugby league players with some Antipodeans. Are you going to drop them in to various cities around the world? A bit like happened with the World League of American Football, by the way, where it was like second grade NFL players. Are they? is everyone going to carry on? Is that going to carry on washing? That's the question. Will people in Toronto carry on watching a team of Englishmen and Australians playing rugby league against English teams?
Yes.
I've got no idea whether they will or whether they won't.
Because I think there is a history.
Right, well,
of,
the World League of American Football didn't last that long.
No.
It resurfaced twice.
but I think there is a history in place in sports like basketball that where you come from is not an issue, provided you have an association with the city that you're playing for.
Okay. Right.
And as you say, you're good. Because people won't go and
okay,
watch
so if that's
so
going to work.
I think
right,
that would work in North America.
Right, okay, so then if you drop in Toronto, Ottawa, New York, how many teams do you, because they say they should only have 3, but how many do you drop in before it ceases to become an English rugby league? This is the problem for Elston, isn't it?
Mm.
That's what he's worried about. He's worried that it won't be an English rugby league.
But what we've got
it'll be...
is the RFL allowed to admit these teams and then Elston to pick up the pieces when they get to the top of the pyramid. And I think that's what he's saying about we need a quota system, because he doesn't feel enough due diligence was done before Toronto were admitted. Because exactly these sort of questions weren't asked.
Yeah, but you're talking about due diligence on the owners of the competition. Of
also,
the club, sorry.
And
so,
also what you want from your competition.
Right, but if are you
because what you haven't mentioned yet is the French connection.
Right.
Because the next team that will possibly be in after Toronto, bearing in mind the league table at the moment, would be Toulouse. And the worry with Toulouse is that their home game on Saturday against York, one of the most attractive home fixtures they will have this season, finished 30-26, apparently one of the games of the season, less than 2,000 people.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know. It's much more complex than just randomly.
Isn't this what a rebrand though is? Isn't this where you redraw?
I should have asked you about the rebrand. Yeah.
Well,
would you be excited?
not really, because where, at the end of the day, where is the quality of players coming from?
Well, just get.
At the end of the day,
Well, it'll be an English team playing in Toronto, won't it?
Yeah, but also, but like Toronto, if they get promoted, right? They all they journeymen there, they're going to get shelved down and bring better quality because they will finish bottom of the league.
Well, that's what they will do. They'll just spend more money, won't they?
But where are the quality players going to come from?
They'll sign them off. Yeah.
Where are they going to sign them from?
Well, he'll be able to attract some Australian players.
Well, they're going to get James Martin.
He'll have a couple of marquee players from Australia. Of like the Blake Austin style quality, for example, and then he'll sign players from.
Like a Ryan Atkins from Warrington who's available.
Right, okay. So,
or Joe Weston's been to Toronto.
So you get a team that would be of a decent quality, but it's just a question of whether do you think it's a good idea to have a team. It's a complex, isn't it, to have a team playing thousands of miles away or not?
Because it's such a complex issue, is this what the rebrand should be all about?
Well, look,
World League.
World League of American Football.
World League.
World League of Rugby League. World League of Super League. Look, I would be surprised if the Rugby Football League and the newly branded Mega League, Elite
Mega
Division,
13.
Elite Division, Mega 13 Elite Division,
We'll get those t-shirts.
aren't having conversations with the NFL from the World League of American Football, and they tried that, and also the Super Rugby. Because if you remember when they added in a Japanese team and they added in the Jaguars of Argentina, that was going to be this great panacea to solve everything. It hasn't really worked out like that.
Well, the Japanese are going, aren't they?
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. It was meant to be this, it'd be a panacea, and they'd play in
Well,
Japan, Argentina,
even
South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, and it hasn't actually worked like that.
Luster.
Well, they've had to retrench, haven't they?
Yeah.
Don't say that when Nines is the cure-all for rugby
No, so
league.
it's not.
Oh, apparently, are you being announced as the England coach for the Nines? It's been announced tomorrow. Have you been exclusive?
No.
Oh, come
No.
on.
Not on the management team?
No, nothing.
You could do a Brian Clough style team tour, couldn't you? You could go with the ball scoring, go, there's the ball, go and play with it.
This isn't
No,
about.
it would be marvellous.
Go on, express yourself.
No, that's it.
This isn't about defending.
That'd be marvellous, wouldn't it? There's the ball, you go and throw it
Chicken
around.
chase as much
the
as
game,
you like.
the game plan is quite simple. We score more points.
That's it, Scully.
Simple as.
You score 5 tries, we score 6.
Exactly.
The Kevin Keegan of Rugby League.
Nothing to add about that, is it?
No.
That's what Nines are all about.
Of course it is, it's an entertainment product. That's the point of it.
So that's been announced tomorrow then, the England coach.
Yes, I think we'll know the England, and we'll also know.
Just tell me a little bit, because you're the expert on this.
We're in
Who
trouble.
are they? Because like you mentioned the sevens there, the IU sevens, which is obviously completely a touring circus
It's separate,
with
isn't it?
completely
It's
separate.
related but separate.
Yeah, with the England team that
No one knows
plays
anything
sevens
about it.
successfully, and nothing to do with the Eddie Jones coached 15-a-side team. So, is that what we're going to see, or are we going to see a sprinkling of celebrities? And I don't mean like Gary Schofield. I mean
Russell
like like Sam Tompkins. Are we going to see some of the the elite level players playing in that, or is it going to be completely,
again, how can you introduce a World Cup without having some idea of the players playing in that format before they get to the World Cup?
That's what I'm saying. Are they just going to just turn
Yes,
up and have a bit of a laugh?
Yeah.
But with Super League players, or will it just be a load of blokes that they think are quick?
I think we'll be
right.
Bring back the British Coal Mines. They're going to do a prelude to the tournament.
There will be some players who have unique specialisms in nines, and you
because it's a completely different game.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Mason Caitlin Brown came in there.
What is the nines on?
It's 2 weeks after the grand final.
So
at the Bankwest Stadium.
So the players that who play for Great Britain can't play for the nines, then, can they?
Yes, if they're part of the squad, they could.
Oh, can they select them as well, can they?
Yeah, they
So
could.
they play the nines,
But they will be playing as England in the nines and Wales. So
right, okay.
obviously,
So Danny Ruff can play for England.
So obviously, you would think that Regan Grace would play for Wales and would then perhaps be available to play for Great Britain on their tour because it'll be down.
Right, but will clubs make a fuss? Let's just say Regan Grace. So will Justin Holbrook say, well, listen, he needs to have a break in between and let's say he's not in the touring party, but he's obviously he's not. He's played too many games. Lomax needs a rest.
The
Blah blah
nines
blah.
has been thrown together. You're almost hinting at
Is that the Regan Grace who wasn't allowed to play for Wales last year, apparently?
Well, I mean, again, we're not privy to whatever discussions are going on.
The other thing about the nines that I think is odd is that they've chosen the top 12 ranked nations and they've chosen 4 women's nations.
Yes.
But the whole thing about nines is we were told it was a development tour.
Right.
So for nations like, for example, Jamaica and Serbia, nines is ideal because you don't have to have an extended squad and you don't have to play as structured a defensive game as you would if you're playing in a normal test match. So nines is the perfect vehicle for all of the nations underneath the top 12.
Exactly. Well,
But
that's
they're
what's happening.
excluded.
That's what's happening with Rugby Union Sevens, isn't it? When Fiji and Kenya and America, it's not dominated by New Zealand, South Africa, Australia.
Which is what you want, especially if you're going to get a new, younger, vibrant, rebranded audience.
There's some brilliant stuff in the sevens, but yeah.
So I can't understand why we're not going to at least 16 in the nines and having 4 development nations. What great good it would do in the women's, for example, to have a Jamaica or a Canadian team.
Okay.
Spread the sport.
Yes.
There was a Canadian team in the last World Cup.
There was, but they're not in the nines, which is odd.
Who knows what's going on? That'll be announced tomorrow. The excitement. Find out who the England coach is on social
Have you
media.
any idea who will be the coaches?
Who would it be if you were in charge of a plan? Do you think
Darryl
Darryl would be perfect for?
I'd look at, say, like a Darryl Powell and the Shaw Long, to be honest with you, because Long likes to play the game openness. So, yeah, look at the team of Darryl Powell and Shaw Long.
And why not?
There you go. And apparently James Lowe.
Wayne Bennett it is then.
Obviously. I think we can guarantee it won't be.
John Payman will be in the centres and showing plenty of pace.
Yeah, you want as many 4s as you can in a 9.
That's it, of course you do. Yeah.
So the
shut up shop. We get one try early going, shut up shop.
Apparently we're getting a new Great Britain and Stroke England assistant coach as well because James Lowe has now moved to Rugby Union. He was part of the England setup that beat
Of course he was, wasn't he? He was there in...
So,
has anybody in any era of the game gone between Rugby League and Rugby Union more times than James Lowe? If he's a darts player, he'd be known as the oscillator.
The law of diminishing returns.
Would you be allowed to switch to the PDC and the BDO, the PDC, see which tournament is eligible?
So who would you bring into the Great Britain setup? Bearing in mind it probably won't be Darryl Powell because I think Darryl wants either the top job or...
John says Ian Watson.
Ian Watson?
Darryl doesn't want to work with him, does he?
John Keir?
No. Keir has had his time. Look at somebody like a James Ford, if I'm honest with you. Because he's got a massive future. James Ford has got a massive future in the game.
I think Ian Watson's a great chap.
Ian Watson,
because again, if it's going to be a Great Britain and in its truest sense,
that's true. I wouldn't have any issues with Watson, but as I say, James Ford, I'd like to see.
That's a good shout, actually, isn't it?
James Ford, I'd like to see.
Yeah.
We've got to talk about Hull apparently because we haven't talked enough about rugby. I don't think people listen to this programme. They don't know what we do. Hull are
neither
third.
do we, to be fair.
Hull are third in the table, and we need to celebrate this fact. They're on minus 10 points difference, but they're third in the table. They beat Wakefield 30 points to 14. Why have we talked about Hull? Hull, they're third in the table.
Well,
I don't know what's
Does
left
that
to say.
say more about the
It says
table,
more
or does it
about
say
the
more
table.
about
Listen.
Hull?
Oh,
Listen,
you
let's
tell
have
the
it
whole
right.
fans.
Let's have it right, because I want to get bombarded on Twitter later. Let's have it right. Let's have it right.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Rugby.
St Helens,
That's
St Helens are much the best, and Warrington are much the second, much better than the rest.
And everyone else
second.
is.
The rest of it is a mishmash of mediocrity, and it is musical chairs. And whichever three teams are in a seat when the music stops after 29 games will be in the playoffs, claiming some kind of success story, and they might actually win a playoff game. Just on the law, Saints or Warrington could be crippled by injuries or something daft could happen. But I mean, Hull turned in arguably one of the worst televised performances, not only of this season but of many seasons, when they played at home to Warrington recently. Although they did attempt, in fact, no, it wasn't as bad as Warrington away last season, was it? I mean, frankly, they'd gone for 5 more minutes, it'd have been 100. But I mean, they're not bad, but they're not anything to get excited about, are they really? I know they've got players. I know Sean and some of the better players haven't played, etc. and so forth. But they're not actually that good, are they? They're not somebody you sit there and these are brilliant.
With 4 or 5.
Yeah, and they could be
teams.
third, and if they're the third best, good luck to them. Fair play to them. But they're not. They're not.
I don't think they've necessarily turned their season around because they had a relatively good Easter. Allowing for the fact that on the Monday they got absolutely.
But where this is where again. The system is a farce, because if it was first past the post, they couldn't do what they did. But listen, Lee Radford deserves to be properly praised for that, because he basically said, "Well, we'll just fold our hand in that game. We'll give some guys some experience. If we get beaten 50 or 60, so what? It won't make any difference, because we can still get into the top 5." So I say fair play to Lee Radford for literally saying that played the system, which he did on occasion in previous seasons when he's got them into the playoffs. But I don't think this whole team is anywhere near as good as the one of what would it be? Not last season, the season before, and the season before that.
That won the cup.
Won the cup on both occasions, and
they
were very, they had Leeds clinging on in the end of that
100%.
That fight in the playoff, didn't they? If they'd gone on 10 more minutes, you'd have fancied Hull to beat Leeds, wouldn't you? That year. So, and Hull were very close to getting to a grand final, and they might well have won it. So I think the whole team back then, a couple of years ago, when they won the cup, and let's have it right also, they played brilliant in those 2 cup finals, didn't they? So, they were really good. They're nowhere near as good as they were then. But with the system, they can still get into the top 5, and they may well get into the top 5, and then they might have a run at it. But they're nowhere near St Helens.
Alan says you should rebrand it instead of Super League, the mediocre league. But I don't know. We're going down that anti-Robert Elson route. Other podcasts do that.
Our resident Hull expert.
Well, they're not a good start.
Well, they do.
Gareth Ellis plays, they win.
Yeah, well, we've been talking about for the last 2 weeks, and it's all about the consistency. And at the end of the day, Saints and Warrington are showing that consistency. But as well as said, you can sling Hull, Wayfield, Cass, Cat-Arms, the Red Devils. If we can go on and run maybe 2 or 3 games, we might throw them in. But but there's 5 sides who can qualify for the other 3 places, but they're not consistent, and also as well the fact of the matter is they're not playing quality rugby league, and that's the debate.
I'll tell you what I'd be disappointed in here, because say 5 or 6 weeks ago I had them down as definitely the clear third best at Castleford, and it's no good Daryl Powell coming out, who's got this player injured and that player injured, and Luke Gale, blah blah blah, because they haven't been good enough. Castleford over recent weeks, have they? They've been poor. They're losing games they should be winning.
After the Wigan game, that we were the better team.
I think you might say that because you look at the field position, certainly the first half.
The first half, they were on top, weren't they?
Yeah, good field, but again, they were clueless. They were clueless in attack, exactly. So again, it's the old adage, but I say all the time: if you don't score more points in that position, I couldn't care less. The only stat that counts is the scoreboard. It's as simple as that.
They kicked a couple of penalties. Any team on the game would have gone in at half time, sort of 12, 14 nil up, wouldn't it? And at the end of it, instead of 4 0, and it wasn't the end of it, obviously, was it? So, I've been disappointed in Castleford, I really have. I mean, they got out of jail. Well, they got out of jail against Wigan, didn't they, at home, when they could have got beat. They nearly got run down by Wakefield. I just don't. I just think
something not quite clicking.
I don't know. I've been disappointed in Cass. Maybe I'm doing what I did with Hull. I'm holding them to the comparison to that brilliant team of a couple of years ago when, I just think they were just fantastic. I used to love watching them. So maybe I'm unfairly comparing them to that team.
Chase Blair is arriving. He'll be in the country soon. So that's exciting. When's what's his name coming?
Ava, supposed to be here this week.
Someone asked earlier. Ava.
Supposed to be arriving this week.
Hopefully they call him the gardener or something. That's Leeds' exciting signing. Should we talk about Leeds or should we talk about Hull for a bit?
Nobody wants to talk about Leeds.
How did Leeds nearly lost again? Nearly lost.
I think what we can talk about, if you like, is the best game that I saw over this Easter period, if you call it from Good Friday to yesterday, was actually the under-19s game between Wigan and Leeds yesterday. If that is an indication of the quality of some of the youngsters we've got playing the game and the commitment and skill with which they play it, then at least for those two clubs and St Helens, who we've obviously seen a lot of their youngsters playing in the first team, we are producing some real quality. Anybody who was there early yesterday before the Leeds Hull KR game and witnessed that under-19 clash, absolutely superb, brilliant, and thoroughly enjoyable. If it's on some iPlayer somewhere, then
I think it's on the YouTube.
Do watch it, and it's not the result. It's to do with the quality of the game.
I must say as well, fans, I've had a phone call today from the Whitehaven chairman, and thanks very much, Gary, for the phone call. And he's a little bit disappointed, and I'm sure it should be as well, because Whitehaven are the top of the league, and they're not being given much praise for it, to be honest with you.
Well, in fairness, only 852 people.
Rich, I understand that, but they're not being given the credit what's due. And I think Gary Charlton's done a great job there, because what Gary's done. And his philosophy, and I think all the clubs should be doing it, is picking the local lads. Gary's got that from there. They're getting that consistency. So I say, well, Whitehaven from there, they deserve to be top of the league. Yeah, everybody would love more people going from the turnstiles.
It was a draw, Rich.
But Whitehaven are up there and fully deserved.
The other big news for them
just on this, though, very quickly though. I mean, there's only 812 there. If they had Golden Point, there'd have been about 8,000. Wouldn't they? They're all turned up thinking,
that's how you rebrand the sport.
Sorry, carry on.
They get one step closer to Wembley this week because they travel to Oldham in the 1895 Mega Cup.
The other thing they announced this week was their proposals for a new stadium. Well, for renovating their current stadium. So again, they're going forward as a club.
I'll tell you what as well. If Keighley, if they wouldn't have had the 12 points deducted, I think they're on -1 now. Well, Keighley themselves, they would have been joint top. So. Another young coach who's done a great job is Craig Lingard. He's had to work with plenty of adversity, to be honest with you, from there with what happened under
could be the next Halifax coach.
Under Shane Spencer and Steve Gill. So Craig Lingard's done a great job at Keighley, and who knows that they may get in the top 6.
We discussed Richard Marshall before you arrived. Surprised that we don't know the circumstances on either side, whether it's an economic decision or. We think that obviously he was told that next year his contract probably wouldn't be renewed, and it could well be that they're cutting their cloth according to their means, which we've lauded Michael Carter for doing at Wakefield. But are you surprised that Richard Marshall has left Halifax?
I'm very surprised.
12 games?
Yeah, very surprised because he's done a great job, hasn't he? And and I'm led to believe, and I know he's still got the respect of all the players. The players wanting to play for him. It's still a happy place under Marshall. So. Obviously, if it's happened behind closed doors, he's not happy with it, and he said, right, okay, then if I'm not part of the future, I guess you better look for somebody straight away because I don't want to be part of it. But he won't be out of the game long.
Where do you think he'll turn up? A Super League assistant?
I think maybe Wakefield, Chester. I think does he assistant from there? Because Gilmore, I know Gilmore works. Gilmore's assistant at the moment. He works on the defence. So it wouldn't surprise me.
Leeds are looking obviously because Richard Agar's only doing it on a temporary
basis. He certainly wouldn't look out of place at Leeds, that's for sure. But something where Leeds and Wakefield, without a doubt.
We've been pulled up because Castle have got 10 players out injured. But there's other people who pointed out everyone's got about 10 players out injured.
Listen, every team has got injuries. And the thing
Well, Castle looking great
hang about as well. I mean, if you've got 3 scrum halves injured, you've only got 1 player missing, really, haven't you? In essence, you can't play 3 scrum halves every week. So if you've got Gale missing, Rankin or whatever it is, and Ellis, right? The second and third one almost ceases to become irrelevant, doesn't it? So it's always a smoke screen, isn't it? Every coach who loses games has always got injuries, haven't they? I mean, they've all got injuries. St Helens won. How much did they score yesterday? Was it 50,
well, they apparently had, according to Rommel, saying 12 academy players in their squad yesterday. So
Saints?
Yeah, so they've done well.
Well, apparently, that
can be done.
He's the reason we're top of the league this season. Lachlan Coo, he didn't play, did he? So, I know it's voluntary.
Yeah, but Saints players, most of them were injured or arrested.
Yes, I know, but
exactly
it's the same difference, isn't it? If they're missing 10 first teams, or what are they? I mean, I'm sure Justin Holbrook could list a load of players he was missing.
Well, to be honest with you, I get fed up with this. I get fed up with this morning about injuries.
There is actually some Castleford
It's a good
fans
excuse.
think there is a media conspiracy against Castleford.
Why
because
is
of the
there?
Michael Shenton thing last week.
Why?
It's his fault. He shot the ball.
Well, no, the opposition were at it as well, weren't they? They were all at it.
We all picked on Michael Shenton.
Well, it was a particularly glaring example of the genre, wasn't it? I mean, let's have it right.
Should we have brought in laws to change that, or have we again
it's
created
completely
another stick to beat ourselves with?
Well, like drugs, you mean?
They were
Drugs as
there,
well.
weren't they? They were the laws were there. They just needed to be applied. We didn't need to rush through
They already
new
had.
laws
He'd
that
already-
confuses it even more.
Mr. Ganson had already stipulated what was going to happen, and people might have seen on Twitter, there was a Bradford Featherstone game, wasn't there, when exactly that thing happened. There was a pass from a Fed guy into a Bradford bloke who was just wandering around, and Featherstone got penalised. That was a couple of weeks before the pass into the Rockathon between Catalans and Castleford, so they didn't need to make a big song and dance about it.
The RFL ignoring the championship.
Ignoring the
once again.
championship,
If something
yeah.
happens in Super League and all hell.
Look,
breaks
they
loose.
didn't need to do anything. All they needed to say was like, look, you can imagine now, what I can't understand is why they didn't just reiterate the ruling that they said
Yes.
before, right? And you can imagine how, sorry to mention the word rugby union, but I mean, the top rugby union refs, if that had happened in a rugby union game, they'd have pulled them over and said, listen, stop acting the goat here, stop messing around. Right, don't pass it a bloke on the floor, if you do, we're going to penalise you. Now just stop being a fool and get on with the game, and that had been the end of it. So I don't know why that
Because
didn't happen.
It's not an issue in the NRL.
No, but so in that Catalan game, whichever Catalan player was it? Was it Champagne Tony Gijo or somebody? Whoever did it first in that game. Why didn't they just put him in and say, listen, stop acting like an imbecile.
Yeah.
Don't throw it in. Right, right, just play the ball now and we're getting on with it. If you do it again, right, it's going to be a penalty. And I'm warning you as well at the other end. You don't play these silly games either. And we're going to get on with it. And that'd been the end of it. So,
Which actually Ben Thaler was starting to do, because
Right.
he'd ignored a couple of them
yes.
in games.
Yeah, just ignore it. Just get on with it. But now you create a rule where it says that if you can get in the way of a pass, basically,
You get a penalty.
If you're in the ruck and you can crawl around like a drunk,
Pretending as though you're trying to get out of the way.
pretend that you're getting away and act like a drunk man trying to find his house keys on a Friday night. Thanks. Is that mine? Yeah.
Robert Alston.
Thanks, Robert. You can get a penalty. That will happen.
Cheers, Oldie.
And then you get the problem where you see one game on TV and nothing happens, and it's that means on a one-game sample that the new laws are a success.
I should say,
It's ridiculous.
regarding referees, and I know how easy it is to get a letter printed in the League Express.
Have you done
letters
Under a pseudonym.
under
Oh,
a
yeah.
pseudonym. Plenty.
No
of
one's
times.
ever done that. Right.
But why, oh, why, oh, I've done
The
it.
points of view.
Why, oh, why, oh, why?
Why?
Where's Anne
Harry
Robinson?
Took.
More Anne Robinson.
Why have they printed this letter slagging off James Child? James Child must be the worst referee in the history of rugby league, says G. Dawson of Castleford. Obviously hasn't watched
Come
rugby
on
now.
now.
What's the point in printing a letter?
Well, next
Just
we'll
fills a space.
next we'll be
Complete
claiming that
pointless.
referees determine the outcome of matches.
Oh,
Yeah,
just,
we would have won
Not
the
players.
Super League. Yeah.
surely they could have found
I'm
some
not
rules.
going to watch because X is
Yeah,
the
that's
referee.
right.
Bring back televised draws. I always look forward to seeing the Challenge Cup draw live on TV, but it never seems to happen these days. Because there's a bloody big church on fire
Yeah,
in
it was,
Paris. And before that, there's no one in anyone's interested in. You're thinking of the older
No.
days when it wasn't on TV anyway, just a short thing at the end
It
of
was
lockdown.
all up north with
Or
Harry
it was
Gresham.
on- or it was on
Exactly.
local radio.
Harry Gresham did it.
Yeah,
I did it about 3 years ago. I did it myself.
I did
Yeah,
it
then
on
he got
local radio
banned.
once.
Yeah. And, yeah.
Do you remember they did it on 5 Live? Do you remember that?
I do, yeah.
We don't want to talk about that.
No.
So we'll go down the whole rabbit hole there.
But anyway, we'll see what happens with these.
Um,
Anyway, new rules.
The other thing I was going to say about the rules
Yes.
is
Yes.
that don't we have a procedure? Don't we have a rules committee out?
Well, that's a
Isn't
great
there-
point.
Isn't there a meeting of the coaches on the 1st of May and they
Well,
will be the first people you
Yes,
will talk to
it was
about
quite
it?
interesting because either now Mr. Ganson or whoever instructed Mr. Ganson to change the rules is now doing it independently and arbitrarily, or they've abolished the rules committee completely without even the members of the rules committee being aware of that, because certainly the members of the rules committee that I know weren't aware that they'd been abolished,
No.
or the rules committee certainly weren't told of the rule changes.
Do whatever you want
So,
these days. That's what we're saying. Lee sent me a message earlier.
And does this mean actually, just finally, that
Oh,
Mr.
yes.
Ganson can unilaterally change the rules of the competition any time he likes?
Or was he in fact told by Mr. Elson, who's wanting to clean up the sport?
Could that really happen?
Could that have happened?
Well, I mean,
We can't allow this to happen anymore
Right.
because of the new brand image that we've got of Super League being.
So now you're suggesting that the head of Super League is
No,
now.
I'm not suggesting. I'm
Yeah.
saying, could that possibly happen?
You're
Like introducing
alluding.
the golden point for only one of the competitions.
Yes.
Like him saying today
Right.
that he wants 2 referees, even though the game has said we probably are not going down the road of 2
But we
referees.
know Robert Elson is in the control of Ian Lenigan, etc. Because the conspiracy theories tell me on Twitter.
Right.
Must be true then.
He's the league.
Congratulations to Neil Hudgell, by the way.
Why?
He
Oh,
completed
did
the
the
London
marathon.
Marathon.
Did he really? That's superb. Well done, Neil. That's
I don't know why
magnificent.
people do
No, I'll tell you what.
I don't
Anyone that
Jamie
can run
Peacock,
any marathon at
Keith
any time,
Senior.
anywhere, deserves respect.
Jamie Peacock, Keith Senior, Neil Hudgell.
Full credit.
Fantastic.
No, absolutely superb.
But particularly Neil, from the age point of view, I think
He's
that
not
is.
that old, is he?
No,
He
but
must
that's.
be younger than me.
I don't know. I wouldn't dare to suggest that. Old you.
Mid-40s?
You're looking well.
that. He's the league.
Fair play.
Remember what happened to the players' union? Are they around?
No, I think the head of the players' union is now on the coaching staff at Bradford, so I don't quite know that.
Here's the league anyway, because this is a player union issue.
How does that work?
A cricketer, who I'm not going to name, has been banned for 21 days because we don't exactly know what he did, so I'm not naming him. A union player has been banned for 6 months, both for the second time, both for recreational drug use. Why are we banning our players for 2 years? I'm not in any way condoning it, but surely there's got to be parity. Your thoughts, please. Our
Who did
sport
the
takes it
test on the
seriously.
Who did the test on the cricketer?
It wasn't WADA.
Thank you.
So
If
why?
the club does the test,
We have signed up to a code,
Ah.
which we need to get our money from Sport England.
The players do know. The players are told, aren't they? Don't take cocaine. Like
Yes.
they're told not to bet
Well-
on sport. Like they're told not to do these things, and
but-
then they do it, and then they go, oh well.
you've got to bear in mind that clubs and lots of employers do independent tests for alcohol and drugs, don't they? Now that doesn't mean if one of their employees fails, they have to be banned from working for 2 years, does it? I mean, the employer then decides, well, you can be suspended from work for 3 weeks, which is what's happened with the cricket, isn't it?
But they're not signed up to WADA.
No, but even if they were, it's got to be a wider test, doesn't it? To rugby league clubs do tests for drugs and alcohol, etc., and so forth. That is independent from the wider
They
tests, don't they? But if a rugby league player fell foul of one of those tests, that wouldn't lead to him being banned, Zach Hardacre style, would it? Necessarily, because the club could suspend him of their own volition, couldn't they, and not reveal it to WADA.
But if it comes under a drug test sanctioned under WADA,
Right. Okay.
the actual punishments are
Set down.
Prescribed.
Yeah, but then they can be mitigated,
Speaking
as
of-
we've seen.
I know it's
So that's the difference between that and the cricket that you're
Yes.
There
referring
you
to.
go. There you go. There was a very interesting story last week in League Weekly by our friend John Davidson about drugs testing at a recent Challenge Cup tie.
Or not drugs testing.
Which should be very interesting to see what comes of that from stories and scuttlebutt. Terry's been on talking about the Women's Super League game yesterday between Leeds and Cast. Leeds women in crisis.
were there?
Now. Leeds women in crisis because they've lost their first game of the season, 27-0, not 29-0 as you may have read elsewhere. Commitment from both sides was impressive, and the crowd outstanding, 700 plus, 703 apparently. The first 1,000 plus crowd for Women's Super League regular game is achievable with good scheduling, says Terry. It is, and what we should do is not aim for 1,000. We should aim to break the world record because it's 5,000 or 4,800 and something. Because Harlequin said it earlier this year, and as we saw, it was a bit of a shambles world record. I don't know where the McQuarters were. I don't think they were there. But
has it not been sanctioned?
they said they put this thing on the screen that said tickets issued 4,800 odd, and I only got I think C in English language GCSE. I think I know what tickets issued and people turning up through a gate means, so it would be fairly easy to send out 5,000 tickets
Issue more than that, couldn't you?
and say, oh, look at this, we've broken the record. And I'm going to put it on Leeds' shoulders because they've got their own ground. Leeds Cast later in the year. Aim
Well,
for
you can't have a
5,000.
record on tickets issued, couldn't it? Otherwise, these Rhinos could just put one on every seat at Headingley for any Super League match and then
Well,
close
that's what Rugby Union's done, isn't
No,
it?
but
That's
ser-
what went to the BBC
no,
website.
it's not. But,
It is.
but seriously, I mean, in a very, very short space of time, the Women's Super League has really,
Absolutely.
burgeoned and blossomed and bloomed, hasn't it?
And
Very,
has
very
massive
quickly, and massive
potential.
potential. So, on a serious note, never mind the Rugby Union gate thing, but I mean, seriously, it's got massive potential, as you say, and
Well,
they
when you
really
get-
need to get hold of the game
Plenty
and
from Leeds
give it some
Day
oomph.
yesterday as
Well, when
which
you
is
get
interesting.
games like Castleford and Leeds and Wigan and St Helens, you've got the best of both worlds because you've got that already
Right.
intense rivalry to build on the back of. But the other thing that we keep saying every time we talk about the
Yeah.
women's game is the
Yeah.
quality
Yeah,
is
that's
good.
right.
You couldn't
Well,
do this if the quality
Well,
wasn't good.
as RSW then, the cup final last year was excellent, wasn't it? It was a great match, really,
Fantastic.
great stuff. So
Obviously, I didn't see St Helens versus Catalans, and I don't know how good Matty Costello's performance was, but he wasn't the player of the week this week. It was Rhiannon Marshall. She was absolutely superb.
Against
at
her
Castleford.
former club.
Destroyed the Rhinos yesterday, did Rhiannon Marshall. I think she scored 2, created the other tries for Cass. They were superb. And speaking to the coach afterwards, they were nervous because of the crowd they were playing in front of. It was a good game. And
well, it's in many ways it's a shame that there's so many games challenging to be something to do either curtain raiser or the curtain closer at the Challenge Cup
Which is
final.
what St Helens did yesterday. They had their women's game after the men's
Right,
game.
yeah,
So
well,
they
that's
had a
what-
triple header.
Yeah, Rugby Union do it. They have the England Roses Rugby Union game after the main men's 15, and that works quite well. But it's a shame that you couldn't play the women's Challenge Cup final before or after the actual Challenge Cup final. But of course you got the 1895
Schoolboys.
Mega Cup and the Schoolboys as well. So you can't play 4, 5, 6 games, can you? But the Challenge Cup. Why can't I say about the women's Challenge Cup? Why haven't they got a replica of the Challenge Cup?
because the cup is dreadful. The
I
trophy's
didn't
awful.
understand that.
Well,
make it into.
You'll know better than me.
I mean,
There were the
That's only a minor thing. but-
PFA awards last night,
Right.
and the men
Yeah.
and the women got exactly the
Yeah.
same trophy.
They should do.
I think they do that in the other darts, not the proper darts that we like, but the other darts.
The video dance, yeah.
That was our women's Rugby League roundup there. But
Nice.
the thing that's amusing though is in the first week there was lots of media coverage. It was on the BBC Sport website, the results and everything. We're 3 weeks into the season.
Leeds and Wigan next as well.
It is at Wigan, yeah, 2
Yeah.
weeks' time.
Yeah.
Courtney Hill was very excited to have a week off next week to rest up her busted eye.
I think Phil's right. I mean, the more times that they can dovetail it with the men's fixture, the more publicity you're going to get, and you're going to get, just by definition, more people watching it, and then they watch it and they think, I'll go back and watch it the next week, or where are they playing next week?
And
Yeah.
it's like
Okay, it's
we-
on Sunday this week, and it's away at Cass. Or
I
whatever,
know.
but I'll go.
This is
That's what you need.
But it's
isn't it?
like what we said also about women's football.
Yeah.
That now there are recognisable teams
Right,
playing.
yeah.
Nobody is talking about the standard of the games.
No,
But
no.
nobody is saying that there are thousands of people watching. I think the average crowd at the women's Super League game is about 2,000. But they-
Is that women's football Super League?
Yeah.
So this is the
I think it
Well,
might
Robert
be- I
Ellis.
think it's
Well,
lower than that.
right.
I think it's in the.
But they've just had a £10 million cash injection by a major multinational bank, and surely
we
we
get
should
that.
we should be doing the same.
Why did the obvious question is, why did Barry Hearn offer 2 women places in the William Hill World Arts Championships?
Well, because it was suggested by the broadcaster. Because the main reason.
The problem is in the paper, and this is Phil's bugbear. Question marks as to who scored tries.
You can't do it.
No, it's got to be done properly.
Oh,
But look, you're right. You're right about the sponsorship, because the fact is that women's sport opens a sport up to a whole new dynamic of sponsors, isn't it? There's all sorts. It's different sponsors, different products, and different sponsors, and that obviously they're targeting that sponsorship at young women, all women, the female audience, and that's completely different from. What you'd be targeting
not
with
so
the
much beer and
men's.
Skittles.
That's right, and so it's
In no league.
any sport worth its salt now is really looking to promote the women's game and move it forward. And Rugby League has done well in that regard, but it needs to
That
really
if
keep
you're going to
pushing.
rebrand,
Yeah.
and I know we're sort of saying how is it going to you have to include the element of the women's game.
Absolutely
Well,
right.
this is where you've got the interesting thing coming up at the weekend, where it's the Women's FA Cup final, West Ham are in it, and the Premier League, who don't control women's football,
Yeah.
aren't allowing West Ham to move their kick-off so people can go to both games.
Yeah.
Because
Seems
but then that's another
counterproductive.
thing where the IFL and the Super League need to work out what they're doing on this one.
Yeah, definitely.
And the good news is, if you enjoyed our Women's Rugby League show the other week, which I badly titled the Women's Special because I shouldn't have called it that, there will be another one coming up in a couple of weeks' time. Fingers crossed.
Good man.
So now I've had to say that, I have to do it, and we are doing it, which is good. I've only got one guest lined up. So if you want to come on the show, get in touch. What else has happened? Because I didn't go to a game this weekend, it was only Wigan and Cass on
You
a
did.
men's
You went
Super
to a
League.
women's game.
But we gave in the men's Super League. Because it was only Wigan Cass on TV, which I have to say I fell asleep and missed most of it, which I don't think I missed much. Is there anything else in Super League this week that we have missed? And should we talk about the Championship now? And we've spoken about Toronto and the excitement of their 52-10 win over Swinton. By the way, what's happening with the mascots? What was happening there? They got this new one, and then they've got the old one back, who was wearing last year's kit, which is a bit bad. Kind of very bush league that.
Would you be worried if you were Huddersfield? Because we haven't really talked about that. Well, only just beat London on Easter. Didn't play well against Leeds on Good Friday in the first half, particularly. Just pulled out a win over London in the last minute on Easter Monday and capitulated in the second half at Warrington.
Well, what do you expect them to be doing?
I don't know. I'm just saying we haven't spoken about Huddersfield.
Well,
if you were a die-hard Huddersfield fan, would you be worried about where they're playing at the moment?
I'd expect Huddersfield to finish somewhere between 2/3 of the way down and 11th. Wouldn't you? Sorry.
Well, we all know, the impression what he made last year when he came in there, but that was always going to come to an end, wasn't it? And now I think he's realised the players what he's got. Again, they're just not consistent enough week in and week out to play to the level what he anticipates from there. And they are where they are because that's what sort of team they've got. They're totally lacking consistency and quite simply they're not good enough and they're not going to make the five. Nowhere near.
They've lost a lot of their spine, particularly Ryan Hinchcliffe, whose retirement probably wasn't made enough of because I think he was integral to that team. Obviously, they decided that Danny Bruff's time had come to an end. They decided to sell or swap Jordan Rankin just before the season started. Those are three players they're going to play in the spine of your team. It's a dangerous thing to do, isn't it?
What it is, and it's backfired. Simple as that. It's backfired, hasn't it? Because them three players were certainly a massive part of Wilford last year when he went on that great run and got the Giants where they got to. But you can't afford to lose quality players like that and not replace them. And this is the reason why they're in the league position. They're not going to get anywhere near the five. They're not.
I mean, the team that can, and this has been happening for 2 or 3 seasons now, and so kudos again to get Carter, is Wakefield again continuing to spend lowish wage bill and still up there. I know they lost at the weekend. But here's another thing, talking about that's the Castleford Tigers supporters. How many players Wakefield are missing at the moment?
Well,
That's just the way it is, and they've actually got their best players missing. They've got Turbo Tom Johnston
Michael
missing.
They have 75%,
Notice the nicknames. I'm trying to tell you.
75% of their salary cap.
Don't give the players an idea because Dave Fafita's already selling his own T-shirt.
Well, he should do. He should be doing marvellous. Yeah, big bopper. Yeah, eats fries, assists tries, magnificent. Right, so they've got Turbo Tom Johnston missing. They've got Big Bill Tupou missing. They've got Danny Brough. They've got
nickname Danny Brough.
Jacob Miller's missing.
They've got Milky Miller, the Milky Bar Kid. So there's 4 of their best players. I know it's not. Fafita's obviously a superstar.
Matty Ashurst,
who
is one of their
best players.
heroes.
So there's 5 of their best players, and yet they're still going out and getting results on a fairly regular basis. It's no good whinging. They're just getting on with it.
Exactly. But also as well, let's look further down the league season. Now let's just say that this league table here now that finishes the top 5, and everybody has the squad. Everybody's back playing.
Right.
I reckon Wakefield with the side what they've got on 80-minute performances. I reckon they could give. I reckon they are the team to give a shake up for St Helens and Warrington. I do.
There was
the team that nobody will want to play
Correct.
in the playoffs.
Yeah.
No,
I think Wakefield are the team to give it a shake up if everybody's got the best players.
You've gone wrong here because there was that theory espoused on social media the week that Wakefield, big game bottlers, don't win close games, apart from Leeds the other week. They won that one. So
What about Catalan? Still unconvinced?
Yeah, what about them? I'm not having them.
Because again, we were all saying at the start of the season, with the players that they've signed, they should
Why
be in the
not?
top 5.
Exactly.
And, they're on the edge of the top 5, but their away performances, even though Steve McNamara says he's not worried, they're not convincing.
No, they're not at all. And, that's why it'll always be the same. And I don't get it because they'll always travel the night before and they'll give themselves plenty of time. They'll give themselves good preparation.
They're here for 2 weeks.
Well,
They're here for they've got a camp, haven't they? Because they've got 2 away games, Saints and Hull.
Yeah.
So they're actually staying over
Staying
here.
over, are they? So,
Any league with a playoff system enables you to mask all sorts of deficiencies by winning a
course.
couple of playoff games.
Yeah.
Back in your
I mean,
you have to win a league.
having
You have
all
to be
the players
consistent.
fit.
You have to
play week out.
You've got to play well to win from outside of the top 2.
Yeah, of course you have, but you
But
can
if
win
you
a
get
couple
the right players back,
Yeah, but what I'm saying
And
is...
I'm not going to use the word momentum going into the playoffs.
Fall out with you, mate. What I'm saying is, one of the teams that finishes 3rd, 4th or 5th will get within 80 minutes of the grand final.
Yeah.
Right, bad as they may
did
get.
one year from 8th.
Yeah, they lost their lead,
Yeah,
didn't they?
yeah.
Thanks.
Well, Leeds picked him in the.
We'll bring back club
Club
call.
call.
We could rebrand Super League by bringing in club call.
There's Eddie at whatever ground, and here's Tony Smith comes out and says, "Yeah, that. It's great that." Thanks, everyone has made us the 62nd most listened to podcast on Spotify in Peru this week.
Wow.
Thanks
Big
for
in
that.
Peru.
Because I checked my emails because the Steve Prescott Man of Steel votes are in. This goes straight to my spam these days, which is
When's
quite
this?
amusing.
This week?
This is this week's.
It's good. I'm glad they moved it through to the Monday. But what are the results?
Wigan versus Castleford, 3 points. Sam Powell, 2 points. Sean O'Loughlin, 1 point. Liam Watts.
Not Corey Aston then, who
Not-
got
not TV's Corey
who got
Aston.
the broadcaster's man of the match.
London Broncos versus Salford Red Devils.
Nice.
Jackson Hastings, 3.
I picked the Wigan Castle.
Did you?
What, the man of the match?
Yeah, I know I was a Monastale picker.
There you go.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Wigan Cast game.
But on the telly, they
Yeah.
picked Corey Aston.
Corey Aston. Do me a favour.
Best
Did
player
he?
in Super League these days.
What?
You must have dipped out to the loo when the final whistle went, but the man of the match on Sky was Corey Aston. He got the silver salver.
What's got to do with
With a
me?
check.
So,
Nigel Woods, Silver
nothing
Salvers.
surprises me anymore.
Sam Howell was the official winner.
London Broncos, Jackson Hastings,
Yeah.
Josh Jones, Luke Yates. Hull FC versus Wakefield, 3 points. Albert Kelly, 2
Rich
points.
vein of form, apparently.
Yeah, 2 points. Big Dave, Big Bopper, 1 point. Danny Holton.
Big Bopper still
Tackle-
leads the
tackle
way then.
52. No, it's well. I'll tell you why in a moment. You see, you've gone early.
Oh,
Leeds
sorry.
Hull KR. This
Oh,
is
Blake Austin must lead the way.
3 points. Richie Myler, TV's Richie Myler. Congratulations, Mrs. Myler, doing the London Marathon. 2
Fair
points.
play.
Matt Parcell, 1 point. Brad Dwyer, 2 hookers there in the top 3. Saints versus Catalans, 3 points. The much maligned Danny Richardson.
Apparently
2 points.
played very well.
Aaron Smith, 1 point.
Yeah.
Jack Wellsby.
The axe.
Going to be a
Richardson.
star. Going to be a star.
And Warrington versus Huddersfield, 3 points. Blake Austin, who is top, 3 points clear. 2 points. Chris Hill, 1 point. Darryl, new contract Clark.
Do you think I've been unlucky? I backed Danny Brough at 150 to 1. And of course, not under this system where you don't play. Silly system. Anyway, go on.
That's your money, but that's it. That is the that is the
So
top 3.
who's the top?
Oh, hang on. I've
I
got
backed
to go
Jackson
back to
Hayes.
the-
Well,
Blake Austin.
Yeah.
Big Dave, somebody
How many
else.
points has Austin got, Rick?
He's got 18.
Right.
Big Dave has got 15, along with, scrolls down to the bottom female, Jackson Hastings.
I'm on him as well.
James Roby on 14, Liam Watts 12, only Stephen Ratchford and Mark Sneed, and Lachlan Coote. Danny Brough 11, Johnny Lomax.
Yeah, but he had 11 a few, obviously, 3
He'll
weeks
be
ago.
picking up.
I know, yeah, but he won't catch up. But
Well, 7 behind.
no, I know, but it's a bit. The odd thing, you could miss 4 or 5 or 6 games, which effectively eliminates you in that, but you could still be the best player in the competition.
Blake Austin will be rested for a couple
I'm sure
of
he will
weeks.
be, but I'm not. It's quite a good system. I'm not sure it's the best system. But
So
it is the system.
while you're here, if I was sat at home sending in a question,
Mhm.
I'd be saying, now that Eddie's retired, and you can give him a eulogy should you wish.
Hey, listen, Eddie's been the voice of Rugby League right since the get-go in terms of Super League, hasn't he? It's
Why
30 years more or
isn't
less.
our stud the voice of Rugby League?
Darts.
Yeah,
Hashtag stick to dance.
Yeah, but
Stick to darts. Hashtag stick to darts.
we're not going to see you.
Hashtag new beginnings in commentary, man. You should be the
Sorry,
number.
Very kind of you to ask.
After I said the word hashtag, that's it. That's just the end of anything.
There's no idea what it means.
I've got a clue what it means. What's it mean? What's new beginnings mean? What's new beginnings mean?
Well,
But
No, well,
would you like
the
to-
darts? Obviously, the darts is the start of the Premier League darts season. Virtually coincides with the start of the Super League season. That runs for 17 weeks, so that's Thursday nights, obviously. So
yeah, but there's still Friday Rugby League.
there is still Friday Rugby League, yeah. So
Can we expect to see or hear your dulcet
I
tones?
don't know. Someone would have to ask me for this. I just turn up. My strategy with darts is just keep turning up and talking about darts until someone says,
When does the Sky Dart season
The
finish?
Sky Dart season. Well, the Premier League season finishes on middle of May,
So you could.
and then but then there's a World Cup in Germany in June. That's for a weekend, and then the World Match Play in Blackpool is for 9 days in July, and then
So
it
there are
runs
some gaps
through.
in your calendar.
There's some gaps, yeah. But
Will you be,
I don't
will you be
know what
hopping on a
what's
flight
happening.
to Barcelona? Are you excited about women playing Catalan at the Camp Nou?
I've been to the Camp Nou to watch Barcelona play. I think it was Girona or someone. We won 1-0 last year.
Big long
I was up
finale.
in the gods.
We'll get a bigger crowd.
So it's a long way up there, and he got to the top of there, a long way up there.
I mean, the good thing about
I had to
that is-
text someone to find out who'd scored at the other end. I knew it had gone in the net, but I had no idea.
There's only Messi scores, isn't there?
No, it wasn't him that much. Actually, he didn't score. I'd recognise him. But no, well, listen.
Would you go?
Good, so
Talking
we're
of
gonna-
events,
we're
if
gonna
you've
go-
got a spare space in your
I've
calendar.
been there, so if I hadn't been to Barcelona, I might go. But I've been there for my
We're going
sort
to
of
got a
tourist
special training kit for that one. Catalans have got a special kit, so
Um,
there's another one for you.
Word is that it will break the Super League record
That's
for
good,
a
then, isn't
crowd
it?
as well.
That's
which
good.
is
That's another tick on Robert Elton's manifesto.
Yeah. Well, it's an enormous stadium, so they need they're going to need a decent crowd to.
Like
to
Leeds
make it
played
look
stuck
good
out
because
there.
yeah, well,
30
Leeds played Stuttgart.
30,000.
There's less than 10,000, though, wasn't there?
Well, I reckon there'll be at least
92.
30.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Third
right.
full.
Look, you know, if Barcelona Football Club offer you a chance to play at their ground at the Nou Camp, you're not going to say no, are you?
No.
You know, that would be
And I think
nonsense.
without getting too political about it, the fact that the Catalan flag is much prized in that part of the world at the moment after the recent elections.
Yeah, so-
I think the team is called
No,
Catalan.
no,
it
it should
represents the region. I think
It
they'll
should
get a
be
lot
good.
there.
It should be
It'd
good.
Well,
great.
we're heading into the summer bash, which of course is smack bang in the middle of that game with Catalan.
And of course that weekend, Greece playing Norway
At
in
London, yeah, which I'm going to miss because when London play Wakefield, isn't it? So sadly, I'll be watching Barrow and Sheffield or something. Actually, they haven't announced. Have they announced all the things that are happening at the bash? Because there's one fixture that appears that's on the Sunday that I don't think it's been announced. So I don't know if we're allowed to say it or not because it's not been announced.
come on.
But it's on the list. It's on the accreditation list when you apply to the RFL. There's like a women's origin game between Yorkshire and Lancashire, but I don't know if anyone knows it exists. And
To the players now.
because they told us the other week.
Oh, that'd be
Remember when
handy.
they came in?
That'd be handy.
They've scheduled it. This is great, right? So the last game on Saturday is Halifax versus Bradford at 8 o'clock. So finish about 9:30, 10 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
The women's
Straight
origin
to
game.
Scarborough.
Yeah, women's origin game.
17 pints.
Women's origin game. Come back 10:45 Sunday morning.
Well, that's all right. Go straight through. Big breakfast and back in.
I'm just going to bin off Halifax Bradford. I don't know what Bradford do. Jeez. I know Bradford fans want us to talk about them. Your chairman needs to just shut up. It's simple as that. Moaning about
Don't
Catalans.
talk about a man who's got
No.
hospitality
Moaning
there.
about I'm not talking about Nigel. I'm moaning about Catalans taking money out of Super League when Bradford Bulls went bust and took money from the taxpayer and local businesses. And I'm not saying Bradford are the only club to have done so, but come on, have some humility. This is why people don't like you. You realise that. Leeds Centurions. They didn't have Danny Richardson this week, but they've got Ryan Briley back. The missing man of Toronto. All the Toronto fans are upset, but he's back, and he's back leading Lee to victory over Batley.
I like what Lee are doing. I think since they, again, under somebody we know well, Chairman Mike Latham, realised that they also had to cut their cloth according to their means to get people who have a passion for the club back. It can only be good for them. Nobody's talking about them this year, and yet they're in the top 5. If the league finished today, they'd be in the playoffs. I think that's a remarkable turnaround.
Is that likely to happen?
From a club? I wouldn't
The
be
league finished
surprised.
today, I mean.
It'll be a rebrand. Finish today and then rebrand.
Completely abandoned
Get
now,
Ralph on the
really,
phone.
yeah.
Ralph,
Stop the
just
race.
finish it now, yeah.
I think Lee may well end up in the position they're in at the moment, and that would be fantastic.
Let me ask you this: where's the final of this event taking place?
Of what, the championship?
Yes.
In the middle of the
Heading.
Atlantic Ocean.
Is it Headingley? Right.
Oh.
Okay. Right. So
Or
regardless of
Emerald
who's in it, it will be at Headingley.
Emerald.
Right. Emerald. Right. Right. Okay. Right.
I don't know if that's been.
You're on plug.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I
I know
might
the
have
women's
missed
grand finals though.
I may
I
have missed
know
it.
that.
I don't know.
But,
May the 16th, Thursday night, Leeds and Cass on Sky Sports, the opening of the stadium.
oh yes, the new North Stand.
Mm.
Right. Good. Yeah. Yes. I've not been to Headingley since its reconstruction, if you call it that.
Think
But
you'll be impressed.
yes. I was going to say I've had people who have been absolutely
Gary
eulogising,
will
saying
say-
it's the most superb
Gary
facility
will
they've
tell
ever
you.
seen in their lives.
So,
New
The new
heading.
Heading League facilities,
Oh,
I
yeah.
bet people saying it's the best thing they've ever seen.
yeah.
Lovely
Really, it's
crack.
absolutely 5-star and then some on top.
Yeah, I was
Were you being wined and dined there, Scotty?
No, not as yet, but I was.
It will happen.
I was doing I did a dinner in Steeton on Friday night,
Right.
and the gentleman who did all the shop fitting there and all the
Right.
joinery work, and he showed me the pictures. It's
Right, yeah,
absolutely amazing.
Superb.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
It's
and,
like a top class casino.
Yeah, good. Yeah,
sensational. Yeah, yeah.
but presumably without the roulette wheels.
Well, to be honest
I
with
think
you,
you
it's
just
45
want
million
to-
quid. You know,
that's
so
what
you
they
expect it to be quality, don't you? To be honest, you expect
Well, you do expect
You expect it.
Yeah.
They're saving money on
It
that.
sets a standard. That is
Good,
for
yeah,
sure.
good for Leeds. Yeah.
What are they going to have there in the winter though now? There's no, or might be no...
Oh, I think
Other
the
ones.
plan is they'll still be there.
Graham, oh right. So all these people getting upset about that. Graham's upset because there's no cheerleaders anymore at Leeds. But there was a reason for that. So that's
They asked the fans. The fans said it's not the kind of thing that we need.
yeah. It's strange what the fans like and what they don't like. Elsewhere in the Championship,
They like they like quality good rugby.
they like quality rugby league. so-
Wingers scoring tries always goes down well.
Yeah.
Nice
Hats
ground.
off, by the way, to Ash Handler, who I think is most underrated at the moment. 12 tries already this season, playing superb.
Steve says nice ground shim about the team. Come on, Steve. Don't say that. I don't want to be banned from Headingley. He says ha 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 with a knowing wink. Halifax, despite not having a coach, beat Sheffield 32-24. We mentioned
Good
Toulouse
result.
earlier. I tell you what is concerning at the moment is Widnes Vikings, 2 defeats in a row, losing on Good Friday on Easter
Is it
Monday
3 out
rather
of
to
4?
York. Was it 3 out of 4? Something like that. I'm just reading what's on the paper, the last 2 games. And they lost to Dewsbury with Liam Finn, who did nothing at Widnes last season, and pops it with a drop goal. And Dewsbury beat Widnes 25-24. Great result for Dewsbury.
I think Finn said he was booed for 75 minutes, so he thought he better do something and just won the game.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Can't be more than
well
that.
done, well done, Liam.
You've got allegiance to Widnes.
Yeah, I used to watch them a lot. Yeah,
Are you
that's going back a few years.
saddened by the demise
I mean,
of the club that you fell in love with at Norton?
Well, Norton Park, when Martha's ground that one.
These are the days of
Norton
Doug-
Park's
the
going
days of
around
Doug
that
Lawson.
cage tunnel. Remember
Ever
that?
intimidated at Norton
Yeah.
Park?
I can remember it was my second game at Norton Park. I
Yeah.
played in my first game against Warrington, and
Yeah.
Ronnie Dwayne absolutely, the Great Britain Centre,
Right.
drew 24-8, absolutely
Yeah.
knocked out at me. And then my second game was at Norton Park, and I was up against Eric Hughes,
Right.
and
Took no
exactly
prisoners.
the same.
Yeah.
Just literally battered. But yeah, the great thing about Norton Park, yeah, going through that meshing from there, but the fans were literally, you could just touch the fans.
Yeah.
I would imagine they're around about 3 yards away from the touchline,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that's where
yeah,
the spectacle.
yeah.
But it's a great atmosphere, and
Very
they
intimidating.
were the Cup Kings, but they did play the game in the right way as well. You know, when you look at it, young Gregory, young Lyon,
Yeah.
and Tony Myler, and Michael Neal, and
Yeah,
these sort of fellas. You
Yeah,
know.
I started
Yeah.
watching slightly after that when Dougie Lord was in charge, and Fire and Davies, Davies and
Keith
Devereux and Tate and the
Moriarty.
Ian Brothers, Kinkert, Sorensen,
Sadly, there's no
Phil
pictures
McKenzie.
in this Martin Fire
Chariots,
book.
off here.
But I've picked up chapter 9, I've just gone to this. How good is a fire, it says, or off you, as you say. As soon as Martin Fire began to make an impact in rugby league, and other clubs realised that Doug Lawton had unearthed a rare talent which got next to nothing, the hunt was on for the new Martin Fire. They came from everywhere. Kenya, brackets, Eddie Rombo.
Oh, yeah.
The Fire's old
Eddie.
school, brackets, Bright Sodgy. Broughton Park, brackets, Bremark Kebby.
Widnes,
Yeah.
yeah.
And were often billed as even faster than Martin Fire.
Yeah.
But they weren't.
That's why.
Kevin Penny. in
That's
later
why.
years.
That's why we signed Rombo, because Rombo trialled for Leeds at the Wigan Sevens.
We did.
And,
Played well in that Wigan Sevens.
and that idiot Lawn, you know, I've just unearthed. I've just seen the next fire. What did we go and do? It's child footage. We better sign him. Oh Jesus Christ! Absolute crap. Absolute garbage.
People love it when we bring out the old faithfuls.
They love him at
Lawton,
Dewsbury.
Rombo.
Love who?
They love him.
Eddie.
Do they? All right.
Cult figure at Dewsbury.
Regan Grace is the newer Fire, says Nick.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
They'll never be. They'll never be.
I'll never be another Martin of Fire, I can reassure you. You know what makes me laugh when people say about Martin, well, he couldn't defend. I couldn't care less, couldn't defend. He's
He's
got
got 60 tries.
When he gets 10 in a game, you don't need to defend.
Martin scored tries nobody else would do because he just had sheer pace. But he didn't wait for the ball. He had that, that vision awareness to go looking for the ball.
That's right.
That's what made him a special player.
Yeah.
He wanted to be involved,
That's right,
and
The game was
quality.
The game had less structure though. Scope.
Yeah, well, exactly.
He could wander around the
Just
field,
wander around.
you know, thinking there might be a break over there, and I'll wander.
Oh,
Nowadays, if the left winger ended up in the right centre now, they'd be all back with the Shepherd's
Also,
Crook.
also
It
as
didn't
well,
work like that, did it?
the way that Wheaton's playing, could you see Martin Fire being used as a battering ram?
That's what I'm saying.
I know what Martin would do.
The game's
Yeah, meters after contact to fire. I don't think.
But the great thing as well with Martin, he had that enough pace when he was hanging around there, and then he realised the ball's going to move to the left hand side.
Yeah.
He had enough pace to get round there and go end up bleeding things. You know what I mean? But that wasn't the speed; it was his vision and his awareness.
That they needed to get the ball to him because he was in an unconventional position.
Iconic haircut.
When you were watching Witness, Darren Wright,
Yeah, he's playing. Yeah, Courier and Wright were the centres. Yeah.
and Tony Myler,
My brilliant one.
The-
The vision of passage.
the
was
two
unbelievable, yeah.
best players
We sound like a load of
who
old
were
fogies,
just
these guys.
Tony would have been the best
Tragically
stand-up.
injured. Yeah.
He kept
Tony had
breaking
been
his
injured.
arm, and
He would have been the best stand-up.
Yeah, he
And
would have been.
Darren Wright wouldn't have been far off being one of our best.
Right,
centres.
right was good. You know, they're a brilliant team, but I mean, the irony is, there's a certain similarity with what's happened now because they were overspending. They were constantly spending well beyond their means on that glamorous team for the talented players. And eventually, that caught up with Witness. Then that's why they had to sell Martin
That wasn't a
and Jonathan
trade to
Davies
Mr.
to Warrington.
It wasn't a trade to Mr. Lawton's wherever he went. Was it?
Well,
Didn't
spent
the
a lot of
same
money on
thing-
players.
didn't the
Oh,
same thing
well,
happen
Well,
at
you
Leeds?
can't blame the coach if the director signed the checks, can you? You
The
know?
Harry Redknapp of Rugby League. Is that
But, you
what
know,
we're saying?
they,
Not slightly more successful in terms of trophies.
What, did he bring out a book about Jamro?
yeah.
Well, I've got, Conley's a Witness fan, and according to Backchat, never heard of it, the final won't be played at Headingley.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know. We don't know. There you go. Only joking. Only joking.
No, it came tumbling down at Widnes before, didn't it? You know, that's why a lot of the players ended up scattered around the league, didn't they?
But also as well, when you looked at that Witness side, the forward pack were great ball skills. Derek Pike, the hooker, you know, Mackenzie Hooker, Sorensen, you know, stuff like that. He had great ball skills.
Coloto.
Yeah, they all had great ball
Keith
skills
Elmer.
as well.
They're good, yeah. And
They
they signed Les Halliday from Halifax.
Yeah, Les Halliday. He was a quality looks forward, but
Yeah.
yeah, he was. Yeah.
Yeah.
A very well balanced side.
Yeah, they were a good side.
They were.
But yeah, look, at least the current Widnes have got themselves back in the game, as it were, you know, because they could have been out of the game, you know, and sunk to the foot and having to do a Bradford, couldn't they? So they've kept themselves head above water, but that's about all they're going to do.
Any
at the
danger
moment.
of relegation?
No, because they'll, well, I mean, any outcome possible, but I mean, they'll win more than half their matches, won't they? So even if you take the 12 off, I mean, the record on the field is okay, isn't it? 7 wins and 4 losses.
A big
it's
win
okay.
for Dewsbury, though, this week.
That's big win for Dewsbury. I mean, Widnes's sole ambition this season is to just get through the season and
Finish
Yeah.
third from bottom.
well, that's good enough, isn't it? I think they'll be a bit higher than that, won't they? They'll probably end up winning somewhere around 2/3 of their matches, so that'll be all right. Listen, they'll be happy with that because they've got through the season, haven't they? And they've now got to cut their cloth accordingly. They've got to realise how much money
And
they've
they've got a
got.
lot of good young kids.
Yes.
They've got
Coming
good,
through.
yeah, so, yeah.
And kids don't win every week
They're very
because they need to get the experience of that grind of playing week in, week out.
Ian says Lawton was a visionary. Robert says Les Holiday destroyed Leeds in the cup semi. Scully will remember. Bet Phil will
I
remember.
do. Yeah, I do. Thanks for reminding me.
Never too far away from Leeds in crisis.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
is just
I
what
do.
people forget.
Destroyed us
Was that-
twice. They destroyed
Was
us
that
twice.
the game that Goldie was playing?
Yeah, the biggest 24-minute semi-final.
24-0 and
That's the
then
Regal trophy.
39-4.
Regal Trophy. That was
Yeah,
at Wigan.
Regal
wasn't
trophy, but
it?
then also,
39-4 was at Wigan.
yeah, but then all the destroyed as well when Malcolm was in
Central
charge in
Park.
quarter-final at Edley with 27,000 crowd.
Yeah,
and they just,
Andrew Essingshausen's
That's it, Cliff Lines were there, and they just literally absolutely battered us. Yeah. So, but yeah, we just have always done a good job on Leeds. Yeah.
So if the final's not played at Headingley in the Championship, I mean, you could always play at Bradford if the ground's still owned by whoever.
As long as they're not in the final.
Yeah.
Vigo and Bradford.
Doesn't matter. League One. We need to talk about the result of the weekend, the result of the season, the result of the millennium, because London Scholars went to Hunslet and won.
Not just one, but thrashed them.
Thrashed at 42-26, led at half-time 18-16, full in front of 661 people. Neil Thorman 7 from 8 from the boot and scored a try. Welcome back, Chris Thorman as well, by the way. 42-26. What a result for London Scholars.
Well,
Proof that expansion may possibly work.
Yeah, but also, as I said to you, in that league, well, the Championship will just take, but the League One, it doesn't matter who you're playing, if you don't bring your A game, you're going to get turned over. You are, because the players are all committed, and the ones at the lesser team, they're even more committed from there, and they'll keep going for 80 minutes. It doesn't matter what the skill level they've got. You give them a sniff, they will turn you over. That's exactly what the Scholars had yesterday. I would imagine Gary Thornton would have been absolutely furious because he's looking for consistency week in and week out. Hunslet, I know coming from that area, they are desperate this year to get back into the Championship. So that really has rocked the boat. Really rocked the boat as that defeat.
Big 2 points for North Wales as well, winning 12-10 at Doncaster. Obviously got high hopes of their own in that division. And again, it's very tight there, isn't it? You've got Coventry and North Wales on 4, Workington and Doncaster on 6, Newcastle on 7, who have obviously haven't had the greatest start to the season. Newcastle an interesting situation there because with the way things are going in, to mention the other code again, the Rugby Union Premiership, they that ground may hold a Championship Rugby Union team and a Championship Rugby League team next season if everything went to plan for the Newcastle Thunder.
I mean, you've been a fan of giving West Wales a chance.
Come on, West Wales.
Not jumping on the bandwagon.
Yeah, however.
Is it more of a worry that they lost 72-8 or that only 197 people were there to watch them?
I don't,
Or
who,
do the
who
two
are those
go
people?
together?
Who are those people? Why do they turn up? Maybe they're sporting. I don't know what the word is. I always get this wrong.
Tragic.
Is it sadist or masochist? Which one is it? It's one of those. Again, didn't do English well, as you can tell. I don't know why they turn up. What can we do? There's always been this team, hasn't there? Whether it's Highfield or Highfield, Runcorn, Highfield, Wigan Highfield, Smithfield Borough. There's always one of these teams who Chorley Borough, Trafford Borough. I need to do that investigation. Mansfield Marksman, Kent Invicta, Southend Invicta, and now it is the West Wales Raiders who. There was always one
were we expecting more? Because they got an Australian coach.
Well, they haven't lost 500 yet, have
they
they?
re-recruited.
Well, if you wait long enough.
What difference does that make as a recruit in Australia?
No,
it's all about the players.
Realistically,
He bought some players in with him. They had quite a turnover of their squad. They were expecting
we know Coventry.
better things.
Coventry probably are not too happy with only 2 wins from 6 of them, but they're possibly the only team who West Wales can beat. And if you had that match down, you'd have Coventry by about 30 or 40 points.
Well, the question is how long you persist, isn't it? That's the key question, isn't it? Or even is there a limit of how long you'll persist? You will persist.
Maybe they're waiting to produce the next World Darts Grand Prix champion out of that. I don't know what's going to happen with West Ham. But
good old Gerwin.
I like the shirts. They've got nice shirts. They're very bright, but I don't know.
Yes.
So now you're slightly disappointed that you haven't seen I mean, again, with 8 games minus 322 points.
They are going to go down in history, aren't they? They are possibly going to be the worst team in the history of rugby league.
Who? West Wales?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we don't want them to be that, but I got pulled up for calling Theresa May the West Wales of Prime Minister, but it's not my fault.
But what do we do as a sport? Is there anything?
Well, we're not doing anything, are we? We're just letting them flounder at the bottom. This is about development and stuff, isn't it? Do we care about rugby league in Wales? We should. Do we care though? Again, there are big opportunities, aren't they, in handling codes in Wales with the way things are going with the Pro 14 or whatever, and the
haven't they lost one of their district teams?
franchise districts and whatever? But
Why are they in this? Why are they in this 1895 cup?
because they entered it. Yeah, they entered it. Because Coventry aren't in it, are they? And
London
Skolars aren't in it. Yeah.
Which is a shame when the final ends up.
Yeah.
Well, why aren't they in it?
Because they didn't want to be in it.
Why not?
Is it some midweek games or something? Even though this week's games are
Well,
on
the
the
weekend.
Yeah,
I know,
but
yeah.
future rounds of midweek games. They didn't think it was economically viable.
But again, the 1895 Cup is an aftermath, a sop to championship teams.
Well, that's a good idea.
It is, but the way it's been implemented.
I've been banging on about this for years, and it's a good idea. But you've got to get it right. You've got to get it right, and you've got to make it right. There are successful lower league cup competitions in all sorts of sports.
Well,
aren't there?
didn't the Checker try to get 70,000 people?
Yeah, it did, but of course it was a season where it was a little bit of a freak circumstance where you had literally the two biggest teams outside, or certainly 2 of them. I mean, because Barnsley might have had something to say if they only got into it. But Sunderland, obviously, with an enormous fan base where they're against Portsmouth. But what a magnificent occasion for the teams outside the top 2 divisions of football. So we've got to get it right. I think it's a good idea. The debate of whether you play after the Challenge Cup final or before the Challenge Cup final, of course, is a slightly cloudy issue, which is not that easy to solve. But I definitely think it's the right idea because the teams in that 1895 Cup, who if you took all the teams outside the Super League, I mean, you could get quite really tasty
But
match,
does
couldn't
it-
you?
does
If
it
you were to get
compromise-
Bradford versus Lee, for example,
Yeah,
Bradford
absolutely.
Halifax or Featherstone
Featherstone,
versus,
Halifax.
you know,
But does that compromise their participation in the full challenge?
I don't think it does because it doesn't compromise the participation in the FA Cup, does it? Sunderland still playing the FA Cup. What's the problem?
Well,
I mean, what is the
there
problem?
there is a chance that Sunderland could win the FA Cup.
Well, yes, indeed they did in
As-
1973.
No, but I mean, was it Bradford City went very close one year?
That was
the
the
League
League Cup. That was the
League
League Cup. They got to the final.
But
But that's all right.
Millwall have been to the final.
They
in
have
the FA
indeed.
Cup.
Yeah.
So
And Sunderland is a lower
there
team
are
again.
still opportunities for clubs who are not the big six.
Well, if Toronto
To
had been
get to
permitted to
final.
enter the
No, but what I'm
Cup,
saying is that doesn't happen in rugby league. So
well, it could
for-
happen.
No, I don't.
Oh, well, Kingston Rovers got to the semi-final not long ago. They got beaten 50, didn't they? By Saints.
Leeds being 50.
In the-
Chelsea.
no,
That was a
in the
final.
final.
Yeah, but they were a Super League team then.
But
But they got as a non-Super League team. They got to the semi-final. They got snatched
I'm
by
just
Saints.
not sure what the Challenge Cup has done for Workington, for example. Going to Headingley in a game that they were never going to win, got beat by 70.
Well, yeah, obviously football's a different game. It's low, like Leeds won at Man United, didn't they? When
Yeah.
Leeds were outside the
Yeah.
first
So I know we're not comparing
No,
like
it's
with the
different.
respective sports,
Well, it's
but
easier to win a
the
football game,
likelihood is that a Championship and League One club is not going to get the Challenge Cup
Right.
final. That two of them are obviously going to get to the 1895
Yeah.
final. So what's their incentive for playing in the Challenge Cup when the outcome could be
Oh, I
the
see.
same? But
Right.
they would get to Wembley, but they only need to beat 3 teams who are of a comparable
Right,
standard
okay.
in
Yeah.
their own cup.
Yeah, but in saying that,
Have we diminished the
well,
Challenge
no,
Cup by
I don't
winning
think,
the
I don't think so.
1895
Because
Cup?
look, Bradford versus Leeds in the Challenge Cup. Are you? That's not.
How-
that's
how
The biggest
not-
ever game in biggest
That's not-
biggest rivalry.
it's
How,
not
in the
how,
world.
many,
diminished.
how many do you think they'll get for that? How
Well,
many people do you
Oh,
think?
25,000. Somewhere between 20 and 25,000. I'll do that.
200,000 people will be there.
You
Have
did
you,
that without laughing.
have you ever done that joke though? Right, how long have we got? I once did this to John Keir. Right, I could do it again with John Keir, but he wouldn't fall for it again. Right, so Bradford v Leeds, you say how many think they get then? I say somewhere between 20 and 25,000. You think I'm a lunatic. Right, and I say, well, I'll bet you, some sum of money that I'm right, between 20 and 25,000. You think it's Christmas, come at once, and want to get as much as you can on the bet. And I did this with John Keir about some game, I think it was the Catalans or something. And he said, right, you're on. Anyway, I said, right, do you want to pay me now, John, or wait for the attendance to be officially announced? He said, what are you talking about? I said, I bet you that the attendance of Bradford v Leeds will be between 20 2-0
Yeah.
and 25,000.
Which indeed it will be.
25 0 0 0.
Yes.
You've lost. He goes, you've stuffed me deliberately. I said, you just didn't listen.
So I think you're right. It
so
will-
that's
it will
it.
be.
But yeah, but no, seriously. That's a good question. I mean, you'd really hope that it would be. It's a great question
No,
because it
but-
should be a
but
good
the
attendance.
reason I
That's a
ask
fair
is
question.
if you were to play Bradford against Halifax
Right.
in the semi-final of the 1895 Cup,
Mhm.
with the prospect of one of those teams playing at Wembley,
You'd get.
would the attendance be higher than Bradford
Right,
against
so
Leeds
it's a
in
great
the
question. It's a great
Championship?
question. Well,
Well, you
in the
can't.
semi-final of the 1895 Cup, are they going to be in a double header, or what's happening? Do we know that? Or is it on the ground of one of the teams, drawn out?
Well,
So this is the thing. But this is my point. Make the
They may have announced it,
right.
but I
Okay, well,
haven't
this is the
heard.
thing. Right, this is the thing. I mean, Bradford v Leeds in the Challenge Cup. I mean, if you've gone back,
Oh, absolutely.
if you've gone back to the, when
Well,
you
yeah.
were playing, I mean, you wouldn't have get in, would you?
No.
I mean, they'd been hanging off those floodlights to watch the game, wouldn't they? The big Challenge Cup time back then, I mean, those days have gone,
Well,
unfortunately. But
I can remember games that you played in the Yorkshire Cup.
Yeah.
That's where there were 18,000.
absolutely,
proper
yeah,
Yorkshire Cup.
yeah.
The
Not
real
proper
Yorkshire.
Yorkshire.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not
really
fair.
good. Look, I don't know. Can they get 10? Could they get 10,000? Is that pie in the sky?
You'd hope so.
Have you got a box? Are you going to
I reckon there'll be no more than 7.
But but I mean, again, irrespective of who the teams are, do you think that there is
But Brad,
there
listen,
is a feeling amongst the fans of Bradford that this is a game they can win?
well, they ought to be. I mean, Leeds might be playing better then, but I mean, Leeds are vulnerable to anybody. Leeds have lost to virtually everybody. They lost to London at home.
They did.
Right, but I mean, if you're Bradford and you're up in the top 3 or 4 of the Championship, and you don't think that you don't think you've got a hope against Leeds, a team that lost to London at home, and really you've got no business playing the
do you
match.
what do you think the fans think?
Well, I think they can turn them over, and I think if they did turn them over, it'd be like the great. I mean, Bradford fans should be turning up at that game thinking this is like a shot at redemption. We've had nothing really
Yeah.
over years upon years of drudgery,
Even though it's a different Bradford.
garbage. Even though it's a different Bradford, a completely new club. And this
No
is the first game
Oh,
for
no.
this, the first big game for this new club. right? But they should be thinking this is a real chance for at long last to have something to go down to Onslow, and if only we could beat Leeds. I mean that feel like
will be fine.
that'd feel like the greatest thing that had happened in decades, wouldn't it? I mean, so really they ought to be down there getting right behind them, and can't they nick something in that game?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Is it impossible?
100%.
It's not impossible.
But do you think there's enough Bradford fans genuinely believe that?
If I was a Bradford supporter, I would definitely go and watch that game.
20 to 25 pounds to go and watch.
Yeah, I'd pay to watch that game if I was a Bradford supporter, because I think this is a chance. These are the games they've actually wanted to play ever since they've been binned out of Super League, isn't it?
Shame for them
waiting for this.
Shame for them that they're in Toronto the week before.
Well, they could send the reserves out then. You can see
But
that.
that's an important
Mr.
game.
Bradford.
If I were Bradford Bulls,
Smart.
I'd be asking Bradford City how they can sell so many season tickets, despite the fact they are
they're terrible.
dreadfully run at the moment.
That's the kind of game you'd want hospitality at, I think.
Well, Bradford versus Leeds.
Yeah.
I think it's a great game.
I've got it.
Oh,
There you go.
Would you really?
Just waiting for that.
I've got it. I've got it sorted.
This is a group thing, is it?
I don't tell the lads.
What's going on?
Very one-sided.
Come on,
No,
guys.
I'll be watching the telly next Saturday afternoon, is it? I'll be watching
Week
the
or
telly
something.
and I'll be finding some kind of blue and amber stuff to wear and up Leeds absolutely stuffing.
Well, go to the game.
You won't be wearing any blue and amber stuff,
Oh,
Mr. Shaw, right? Being a Wakefield fan, you aren't going to be wearing blue
I
and
don't like
amber.
Bradford. I don't like Bradford.
Why don't you?
Arrogance.
Arrogance.
Misplaced arrogance. Wonder who gets the bigger cake, asked Genghis. Toronto versus Bulls or Bulls versus Leeds?
Good question.
Very good question.
Well, that's the problem is, Genghis, as you know, all the people in Toronto are cardboard and just there to drink beer.
Well,
Isn't
is that counting the big?
I don't have a problem. If you want to rebrand the
Well, this is the
sport,
thing.
when the cameras panned round yesterday and there were clearly a lot of people in that stadium, the demographic was different to most of the rugby league crowds that we see.
Good luck to them.
So,
Make it
hats
an
off.
event.
Right.
Make
Happy
it an
event.
event and people will
Happy
come.
event.
We need to attract
Well,
more people to
they'll
our
get
sport.
9,000 something for the game between Toronto and Bradford, won't they?
9 and 9,000.
you'd hope they'd get at least as many as they did for Swinton.
9,300.
We've got to look outside of rugby league people to watch rugby league because there aren't enough rugby league people. Look at the crowds in League One of the traditional
weren't
clubs. There aren't enough people.
Why weren't Toronto permitted to be in the 1895 Cup? Are they in the 1895 Cup? Right.
No,
Oh, 'cause you have to pay.
no, funnily enough, for Toulouse.
Right, but why not? Because that's got nothing to do
Well,
with the gate. does it?
As I say,
No.
as you quite rightly point out, if you're going to do something, do it properly. So
Right.
if you're opening it to the teams from the Championship and League One,
Yes.
they've all got to be
I agree
included.
with you. They didn't. I mean, the Johnson.
The danger then would have been
Paint,
that if
whatever it's
Toronto
called.
had been in the Challenge Cup as well, which they weren't allowed to do, they could have got to the two finals on the
Well,
same
no,
day.
but they don't. Yeah, but what would happen there? You see, what if you get to the semi-finals? They can play in both semi-finals, and if they get to the Challenge Cup final, if they get to both, all you got to do is then play off between the two losing semi-finals
No,
of
I
the
think they have to
1895.
play both
No,
finals.
they don't need to.
They've got a squad.
In
They
the
play
Olympic-
half of them in
No.
one and half in England.
Scotty,
Right.
you've been quiet. We've been boring the viewers apparently, according to Facebook. So, well,
change that.
hello to Mark. The show is dying.
Okay.
Jill, who thinks the show's boring, go off and watch something else. That's fine.
It's not
You're not
obligatory.
forced to watch this
It's
program.
not
I know that this is kind of like the anti kind of thing in broadcasting, isn't it? But if you don't like the program, go listen to something else. You know, when I don't like something on the telly, I turn it over.
Yeah.
I actually think this is quite good. I'd be at home watching it.
Let's go. He's bored now, so Jill's off to go watch some paint drying. I think that's on Free Sport later on.
Pro celebrity
Pro
paint
Celebrity
dry.
paint drying.
Yeah.
You've been studying the results from the last week. Is there actually anything that's happened on the field that we haven't spoken about that we need to speak about?
Nothing.
Nothing much has happened.
There's not really anything being exciting, to be honest with you, if I'm honest with you.
So this is the question then. Are you now in the camp that says we need to drop one of the Easter fixtures? Is it compromising the quality?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And the number of injuries that every team has got means that we have to have a realisation that
Look, listen.
everything is compromised.
Right. They can stop the Easter fixtures could be stopped like that overnight for next season if you've got a players' union, because the players' union say, right, this is what's going to happen. There's a meeting.
Players
Say,
aren't gonna play.
right, this is what's going to happen here. We're playing
Like
one
Bolton,
game
yeah.
over Easter. If you don't like it, well, we're not going to play on Easter Monday. So just be aware that there won't be any players turning up for any match on Easter Monday. That's the end of it. Debate ends. As long as if you've got a strong players' union, that's what happens in the NFL, in the NRL. The NBA, the PFA, all these bodies just go, we're not doing it. I mean, that's the end of it. So we'll have a debate, and then at the end we'll just say we're not doing it. So if the players just say we're not playing, that's the end of the argument. Now, if they're prepared to kowtow and capitulate at the drop of a hat all the time, then it'll just carry on, because what you allow will continue. And that's why it's continued over and over again. We keep having the same conversation every year.
But you've been a fan of, it doesn't matter about the number of games, it's all about, you, as a player, you go out there and do the best. Are you now coming round to the fact that we are compromising not just the players but the entertainment value with the second game at Easter? Because Michael Carter did last week on this programme, he said that he has actually changed his mind, that rather than have 75% of his team sat on the sideline, he'd drop a game.
Well, to be honest with you, since this debate started, I would say, from my point of view, for the last 3 or 4 years, I've been thinking, well, no, not really. But certainly from the last 3 years, and what I've seen, the dross, and some of the dross on Easter Monday, and certainly this weekend, yeah, it's got to go. It's got to go, because
what's the gate situation? There's great gates on Good Friday, isn't there?
Yeah, Good Friday's all right.
There's no press release on Tuesday morning.
Right, but the gates were much, and I know that's something to do with who's playing at home, because obviously if you've got Wigan at home and Hull at home, who else was at home? Leeds were at home, Wyre were at home, weren't they?
Yeah.
So all the best teams were at home, all the big teams, the gates
and
were at home.
Catalan could have been at home, and it would have been even more influential.
Right, exactly. So the Easter Monday, some of the better teams, the bigger teams were away from home, weren't they? So that affects it. But nevertheless,
I don't think there's an economic argument.
There's not an economic argument.
And there's only one game on the telly on the Monday as well. It's not as if there was two.
And the other thing that was mentioned on social media, that of course if you do insist on having a round of games on Easter Monday, you can't play again until Saturday. And,
so there's no
as you will know,
the
Thursday, Friday darts aside, there wasn't a huge amount of football being played. There was a window there for Rugby League to have a major game, and we didn't.
Sandy's saying, are you telling me the Rugby League players don't have a union? They do, but they probably just want more cheap coffee and Nando's.
Nobody listens to it.
This is the thing.
Nobody listens to it.
I don't know what's happening with the union with Mr. Carter. I've got no idea. But if you have a union, you have to get everyone signed up, and you have to be prepared, basically, to say we're not playing.
Exactly.
All right.
One out, all out.
I mean, Clint Newton in the NRL, the Australian Players Union. I mean, if you remember, they just said we're not turning up at the Dally M Awards, and if that's happening, Jonathan Thurston and Cam Smith were prepared to say we're not doing it. These are big hitters, and when they start talking, people listen, and that's what Super League and Rugby League needs, isn't it? It needs the big hitters, which they had briefly with League 13, didn't they? With John Wilkins was involved, and Jamie was involved, wasn't he? But not enough of the players supported it. Well, if you don't support your union, you can't then complain when the union disappears. This is pretty basic stuff.
I just sometimes think the players aren't that bothered. They make a lot of noise on social media about this, that and the other. They're on social media moaning about referees, and I saw a player last week calling one a numpty.
Well,
and again,
fine for that.
Why knowing that the RFL is pulling people up on this, I don't know.
Right.
But they're quick to moan on, and I'm the worst person to say this, aren't there? Someone moaning on social media and then never does anything. But the players all moan on social media about this, that and the other, don't do anything. Yeah. So it's your own fault. I know we're not supposed to call out the players because they're warriors and all this and the other, but sometimes they need to be told, and they have to be in charge. Oh, God, it's me rant now. But they're in charge of their own image.
Yeah.
It's all right, Robert Elson coming out and saying we need to promote this young, vibrant image of rugby league, but when the players come out and act like lads on social media and swear and this and that and the other,
quite right. Couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, she's spot on. Spot on.
This is the refreshing thing about going to the women's games, and he's not saying the women's game's perfect and this and the other. The players actually speak eloquently about things.
Yeah.
They answer questions. And a lot of, Scott will go back to his day where he hands his number out to every journalist here, there and everywhere to get his point across. No one says anything anymore.
Yeah.
And when they do say things, they say stupid things about referees. Anyway, prediction time, because everyone's annoyed, and they've all gone off to watch Coronation Street or something.
Snooker.
Snooker's on. Forgot about snooker. Go on, Ding. Elsewhere in the world of sports, it is the return of predictions, and Super League is back on Thursday night on the telly, and there'll be a massive crowd. You see, this is the thing someone pointed out, I think it was Andy O'Warrington. Sorry about that, knock on. Andy O'Warrington fans said, Warrington are very smart. They pick and choose the games they market in the games they know they're going to get a small crowd, and they get in the scouts or whatever, and this, that and the other.
What, Warrington?
Yeah.
Well, they marketed the game at home game against Wigan.
Well, they did that as well, that's true. Wigan versus
Nothing wrong with the
blood.
Scouts.
Bad blood in that one, if you remember.
Yeah, Wigan versus London. This is the Ian Lenigan derby. Playing for his trophy at the end of the game. It's on the telly. And it's going. Wigan versus London.
Yeah, they're on the slide out in London, and it's not even though Wigan aren't that good, to be honest with you, but you can't say anything. You can't say anything really, but a Wigan rout, to be honest with you, and I think this is going to be quite easy.
Routingtons.
So I'm going Wigan by 42.
I love it when he. I do enjoy reading Scott's predictions either in his column in the League Express or on Twitter when he just it's never something. Well, I mean sometimes it's something like by 4 or something. But I love it when he sticks in Casford by 62 or some ridiculous number.
You think we're going to make more scoring 42?
Well, they've got to do it, really.
Do you sometimes think of a number that they'll win by, then add about 20 on just for the crack? I mean, seriously.
And then but then he comes in on the Monday and claims he got it right.
Just to annoy someone.
I'm just hoping that I want to see some entertainment on it and some passing the ball, you know what I mean?
The darts is on the other side, so...
darts from Manchester this week.
Oh, there you go.
Yes.
Will John Gwynn be there with a log-end ball?
I think he will be there with a log-end ball, yeah. Michael Van Gurney is playing Daryl Gerwin. Right, what do you want to know? Well,
who's going to win?
I'd say the most likely outcome is that Wigan will win. I would give them something like about a 95% chance of winning that game, wouldn't you?
I don't think it'd be that cut and dried.
Well, that's just
I'd say
there's a 4% chance of London.
I think London need a response.
So I can express it.
Very
1%
chance of a draw.
Well, they need to go into extra time.
So you think Wigan by 95?
No. The 1895 results.
I think North Leeds.
Yeah, I think Wigan will win by 20.
I'm not sure they will because I don't think Wigan have got a lot of points in them. But I also think that London play better away from home.
What's the long range weather forecast? How can you play better away from home?
I know the results seem to be better.
They play
this
better on
season
grass rather
away
than
from
synthetic.
home. And I think they need a response from 3 difficult defeats over Easter. I think they'll be tough to break down.
As he tips them to get beat by 10.
I do Wigan by 4.
Kevin's got for the Broncos by Golden Point. It'll be something like Wigan by 14 or something dull.
Yeah. You got Wigan by 4, Phil?
I have.
I think it'll be a lacklustre Wigan win, won't it? But Scully thinks it'll be a rout.
You know, we'll be told off now for not talking up the game.
Right.
I say this game's going to be rubbish and don't watch it and watch the darts. But let's elevate. Friday. This should be interesting. Down at the Hose.
The Hose, yeah.
The Hose.
Yeah.
I stole that on Twitter yesterday. Apologies for that. Castleford Tigers
See my guest.
versus Warrington Wolves.
Yeah, well, Castle need a response, don't they? It's not been pretty good over the last few weeks, to be honest with you. And Warrington, they've been all right, you would say. I would imagine Price will be around about 65% happy the way things are going, but yeah, I think he'll want a polished performance with Price on Friday night. And I think Warrington will get it, and I think Warrington will beat Cass on Friday night by 14.
All these percentages coming into this program.
Percentages, all about percentages, Richard. Ask any punter. Right, well, I actually backed Warrington to win the grand final at the start of the season, but you know when, as a punter, when St Helens are playing, you just think, no, win this. Yeah. Don't you? You say it's against somebody, you just say, to win this. No problem. And you sit there relaxed with a nice glass of, Sauvignon Blanc and say to railroad these. But with Warrington, I don't think they're 100% reliable, are they? There's always a fear that they could make a mess of it, like they did against Salford, and then you did against Huddersfield. And there's a bit of they're not quite as ruthless. No, you think they could get beat. Like a Wakefield was another example. Like they should have put the cleaners through it. Yes. And then suddenly you're thinking towards it. Well, they would have got beat if Danny Brother kicked the goals, wouldn't they? Mm-hmm. I mean, in a game that they almost lost an unlosable game there, didn't they? So I think they'll probably win, but I don't feel they're 100% reliable. I'm going to go Warrington to win by 6.
The Darrell Clark derby.
Yeah, trophy will be emptied at the end of the match.
I think Warrington have refound their form after that. I think for them, soul-destroying defeat against St Helens because of the manner of it.
Well, they lost to Salford after that.
Yeah, so I think that was the hangover.
Would you? Right.
But I think they've got over that now.
Narrative there. Right.
And I do think that if Blake Austin maintains the form that he is currently showing, that he will be the difference between the teams.
Yes.
And I suspect Warrington will.
Hasn't really had the impact of the marquee signing from last season, Tyrone Roberts, has he really?
Who's playing very well at the moment for the Gold Coast,
yes,
and just made their captain. So I'm going Warrington by 12.
Right. Okay.
one of my Blackpool players looks a bit like a cast player. Just noticed on the wearing one of their kits. Have they worn that shirt to celebrate 101 years of the end of the war yet?
I've seen it in the stand. As a replica.
Which is a classic. Have they got a Magic Weekend shirt? I don't know. People think I'm anti-cast now. No, I like cast. Warrington will win this game. I'm sure it's something amusing to say. Oh, Ryan Atkins, now he's leaving. He's going to miss out his testimonial now because he's had 9 years at Warrington. Unless someone can fiddle it. Warrington by 12.
You can have a testimonial now for just being a good egg, can't you?
And a bad egg, apparently. Warrington by 12. Next up, this is the game everyone's looking forward to. I'll be tuning straight into my local radio station to get updates on this one. As Huddersfield Giants take on Wakefield Trinity. Dave Peter always scores tries at the John Smith Stadium.
Well, the Giants, well, they're not very good, are they, if I'm honest with you? Wakefield.
Well, good the other week.
Yeah. Wakefield, all right, they'll be, again, using that
Got a lot of injuries, Wakefield.
Yeah, looking for a response with the defeat. Got a bit of time off now, so looking for a response after the whole defeat. I just don't see anything with the Giants, if I'm honest with you, so I'm going for Wakefield to maintain it, keep themselves in that top 5. But I don't think there'll be much in it, so I'm going Wakefield by 7.
7. Oh, I've got anything on there.
Well, actually, because Wakefield don't win any close games, but they did win a close game at home to Huddersfield. Didn't
Yes, and Leeds.
Yes,
Yeah.
but
they don't win them.
they had to score very late against Huddersfield, didn't they? They were losing most of the game, weren't they, from memory serves me right. So, and that's I'm not sure about this game. It's a very tricky one. I'll have to make that better of an even. Would you make that an even game, Scotty? If you
Yeah, we'll say it's not far off. Not far off.
Yeah, I'm going to go for Huddersfield by 1 point.
I think
Go for the 1 pointer.
I think Huddersfield's season is a little bit on the line with this game. I think that it will go one of two ways. That if they were to lose this game,
Right.
they're almost not going to make the top 5. If they
Could
win,
they go down?
no, they could, but I don't think they're the
they're
worst.
that
I
bad.
don't think they're the worst.
No,
team
I
in the
know.
division. But I think if they win it, they're again on the coattails of that group that could end up finishing in the top 5.
Yes.
So I'm going to go for, like you, a narrow Huddersfield win by 4.
Well, I've got to go for Wakefield, haven't I? So that'll be exciting. I have no interest in this game whatsoever. I don't know if it's just
We
that time of
support one of
season.
the
They do
I know,
play
it's just-
each other an awful
It's
lot.
got no interest in the game featuring the team that you
Yeah, but Huddersfield is this kind of bizarre thing where they exist, but they've got the annoying people with the cowbell.
Have
And
you noticed that Warrington have banned the cow?
yeah, good on Warrington. No, full support of Warrington up the walls.
the wall.
I just
They
I
play
just
too
don't care.
often.
I just don't care about Huddersfield. There's like the rival side, but I just can't get excited about this game. Wakefield by 2. It's
Sounds like it'd be an exciting match.
yeah. The
Another
all
close win
excitement.
for Wakefield.
The all excitement of the last 2 winners of the Coupe de Challenge, Hull FC, take on the Catalans Dragons at the KCOM Stadium.
What do you think,
Yeah,
Gary?
well, the Catalans have stayed over, but it still doesn't excite me anyway, to be honest.
We're not selling Rugby League here, are we?
I still,
We're not rebranding it, that's for
I
sure.
still don't think that will make any difference to the away form. I think the black and whites, after good win against Wakefield, just making sure that they got the 2 points what they required after the Easter weekend. And so I think the black and whites will win quite easy against Catalans. I'm going the black and whites by 16.
16.
The Steve McNamara down.
Yeah, the trophy to be presented at the end of the match. I think Hull for me, surely. Home, Hull by 10 points.
Yeah.
Well, it could be anything, actually, couldn't it? I mean,
I
they
think
pixelated a few times away from home. I'll go 14, actually. I'll look at by 4.
Is this a game that defines
No,
Catalan
again,
season?
it does. It's a seminal game for
Why is
Catalan.
it?
Because I think they need to prove to themselves that they can win away from home. And
They already have one away from home. They won at London.
yeah, they can win away from home against teams that surround them in the league. And I think the fact that they have stayed over gives them no excuses whatsoever.
Why would they stay over? It's a long stay,
Because
isn't it?
Bern-
It's
Bern-
going.
Bernard's largesse.
Well,
What
Steve. I think it's anyway nice.
Well, I mean,
So I think they will pose a threat to Hull, but that
where
was,
have they gone up to Robin Hood's Bay or something for a holiday? I mean, seriously,
They'll be on the lash.
it's a long time to be away
They'll
from
be on the
home.
lash. They'll be on the lash till Wednesday.
red wine.
We'll be fine, coach.
there'll be Michael McElroy will be taking him back to his place,
Right.
showing him the delights of Wigan. I don't think it'd be a pushover. I think this will be a closer game. I'm going to say Catalan by 2.
It's going to go.
Otherwise, we're all going to agree.
What's been in your? What's
Well,
been in
we're
your?
all going to
what's
agree
been in
with, you
your
with
cup?
every prediction.
Mr. Kappa, what's been in your cuppa?
I'm just going to go for Hull.
Just
Fine.
G.
Hull by 8. I like 8. 8,
Okay.
8 or 14. Go for Hull. So we've got 2 games left. Jeez. Also on Friday, they said their worst performance of the season for Leeds when they were rubbish.
Wow.
Salford versus Leeds, who are good now.
Yeah. Well, when I was last that's when Salford were playing Leeds last time. And I backed Leeds to beat them, if you remember. When everyone was fancying Salford.
Of course we don't remember if
Leeds,
you got it right.
Well, Leeds were having a bad run, weren't they? And
Yes, it was
they
their
still
first
are having a bad
victory
run.
of
Yeah,
the
first victory of the season. And they won
Turn
easy,
around
didn't
then,
they? But they scored all those points when there was a sin bidding, didn't they? They took full advantage of the sin bidding.
Oh.
Because Salford were whinging about that. I'll go Leeds again. Go Leeds again.
Yeah. Well,
5-6.
Salford they forgot that defeat by Leeds, and it was embarrassing to be honest because
It was, wasn't it? Yeah.
Salford were going all right. Leeds, I think was £300.
Yeah,
winning to Salford from there. So
yeah.
it was a great performance. So I'm thinking Leeds will. I think Leeds will be thinking, yeah, we know what you're thinking, but we know we can beat you. So I'm going for the Rhinos to beat Salford again. I'm not going to buy as many. I'm going to Leeds to win by 10.
The Leeds have a very good record against Salford. Probably the best record against any team in Super League. I think they've only lost twice to them in all the times they've played. Once at Salford and once at Headingley. Jansen Turgott in some kind of dispute with Ian Watson has been dropped. Leeds won 4 on the trot at home, but not been convincing away. Again, I think it's a season definer for Leeds. That if they are going to
Hell of a weekend this
But-
week.
but if they are going
Bear in mind
to
it's only the 14th game and there's
Yeah,
another
but-
15 to
but
come
wait,
after
no,
it, which
but
are going to be
wait,
rendered irrelevant.
But we're halfway through the season, and I think if they are going to be one of those teams that hang on the coattails of the top 5, they have to win this game. So I'll go Leeds by 6.
Right.
I like
You'll go
Leeds.
for Salford.
There's a surprise.
I like Leeds. Oh, no, I don't know where I'm going to go on this one.
Action Jackson Hastings.
Yeah.
Who's in fine form?
What's the Salford Leeds derby? Who's that named after?
David Young.
Yeah, go on.
Leeds by
Rob
2.
Ackerman.
Leeds by 2. And finally, on Sunday, Hull Kingston
Phil
Rovers
Ford.
versus St Helens in the John Wilkin derby.
Well, Ulkiston Rovers journeymen, they're shot, they're rubbish, they don't do anything. St Helens are on form. This again could be an embarrassing scoreline at home for Ulkiston Rovers. And I don't think I'm being harsh on Ulkiston Rovers there, and I think the supporters realise that the squad is nowhere near good enough. I'm going St Helens easy, and St Helens have got the right attitude, they'll go there with professional performance. I'm going Saints by 32.
Jeez. Well, I mean, they've capitulated twice, haven't they? Hull Kingston Rovers over Easter. They capitulated at Hull, didn't they? And then they capitulated at home to Warrington.
And in the first.
And
It's all
then
the
threatened
refs'
to
fault,
capitulate
aren't it?
completely against
It's
Leeds.
all the refs' fault.
Yeah, and the refs' fault. Right, so this is the team. It's almost gone unnoticed, but they've now conceded more points than London, and they're playing the team that scored the most points.
Oh dear.
So, on the basis of that, I mean, look, it might be one of those games where it's not as big a rout as you expect. So, because it looks like an absolute hiding, doesn't it? So I'll go Saints to win by 14. In the grounds that they might be a bit more competitive.
I'm with you on that. Though I think just over this period of so many games, it doesn't matter who you are. There is a fatigue factor, and I think it's absolutely remarkable that Saints have maintained their quality and standard whilst also having anything up to 6 or 7 players out, most of whom are their top 9 players. I think Kane Lynette is an absolute standout for Hull KR at the moment. He was brilliant again yesterday, but I just don't think they've got enough players that can turn a game. And I think Tim Sheens has recognised that, and we talk about injuries, but if you've only got a small squad and you get injuries, it hurts more. So I'm with you. I think Saints will win, but perhaps not by the margin that people think, maybe 12.
Well, I'm going to use science because Robert's gone for Saints by 20 and Kevin's gone for Saints by 50. That's 70. Half that, 35. There you go, Saints by 35.
Danny Richardson dropped goal.
Yeah, it's the cheeky drop goal. Like Casted yesterday, they were 10-0 up, had a drop goal, went 11-0 up.
As you would.
No one knows why. That's it. We are done. All the people complaining, they've gone off to watch the snooker or whatever else. Is on the Connect final tonight? They've all gone off to watch that. Thanks to Scoey. Thanks to Rod.
Thank you.
He's always entertained our audience, who are split 50-50 as ever. Thanks to Phil for looking after us. And we'll be back next Monday from 6, in which point we will be celebrating. When is the 1895 Cup draw next week?
Monday, I believe. It might be after
The Challenge Cup.
the Women's Challenge Cup. So
She's also yes.
we may know the draw by.
We may do. They may tell us when it's going to be and everything. They might not.
Brilliant.
It simply doesn't like us, don't they?
I can't remember who doesn't like us. Most people. We go with everybody then.
No, I felt well. I might be accredited for the Summer Bash. If not, I'm going to have a great weekend in Blackpool. Thanks for joining us. The podcast will be out later, and keep your eyes on social.